Hello, we are live.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
All right.
Welcome back to another episode of Make Mine Mayday. Got Kelly,
Hello.
and so we're gonna get started.
Oh wow,
Uh,
we're not even we're just going straight in.
well, I mean, we can. I gave us 5 minutes because when you when you blipped out for a minute, I was like, oh no. so so I gave us an extra five. I put
Okay.
extra 5 in there, so we
All
got
right.
time. We
Well,
just
I mean
decided to
your
start a
your
little early.
voice is cutting in and out, but it's not pixelated, so we're going to hope things are okay.
Well, let me kind of bring the mic a little closer, not too close, and then I'll work on the level, make sure it's not too hot. I'm trying to keep the mic out of the picture, but
Uh-huh.
where it's picking up my voice.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here down now at like 1 bar when I shouldn't be.
So technical difficulties, if we have them in this episode,
Yeah. I honestly if I go down, I'll either get on my phone, which I don't really want to do,
right?
or I will move back over to my bed area and see if that helps because that's been better.
Yeah,
This random like dropping to 1 bar is not helpful, and it's been happening when I'm sitting over here especially, but nobody's here. So it's just me. Think about that. And it's
yeah.
still doing it. Not great. But anyway, we
Big
will
minute.
see.
How does she sound now?
My audio soft?
Yeah, it says your audio soft,
We just
but
we just played with it.
I
See,
know.
that's what I was saying is that like it's not showing that it's moving like at
Okay,
all. All right, hold on.
how about now?
Are you is it from your board?
I don't know because
One
like I
second.
say, I'm good. I can hear myself, and I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
So still soft. Okay. How about now? Talk, Kelly.
I'm talking no cancellation. That's I put that back on. Is that better? Like is it better? I can't hear you guys now. So that's great. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's because I muted myself accidentally.
Okay.
That was my fault. I'm, but yeah, if we can hear Kelly now, the audio version, I'm gonna level the audio,
Yeah.
so
But
it's
I really thought I was okay. Like that's I'm it's weird cuz this is the headset that's too hot.
instead of it being the other way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you sound like I say, you sound good now. Much better.
Okay.
Okay. All
So
right.
then it's echo cancellation.
So it's okay.
I took it off from all the stuff where they were saying stuff,
Right.
but when I put it back on, everyone's saying it's much better. So
Okay. That's StreamYard, man. I know that they're working on they are working on some stuff behind the scenes to make it easier. So I'm
mhm.
hoping um, that it's going to be better. I've noticed a difference also, and I also got a different set of headphones, so I know that that's probably helping too with the echoing problem because I was
Mhm.
using earbuds.
Yeah.
These are over the ear headphones, so I don't need to have as much loudness on my end, like through my
Mhm.
headphones, as I did before with the earbuds.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So, all right. If you want, let's now that we've got that fixed, and I
Yeah.
got
Thanks guys.
thanks for the troubleshooting. All right.
Yeah. But see now I like now the sound's weird with you. But I mean it'll be all right hopefully as long as it doesn't get pixelated. As long as I
Yeah.
can sort of hear what you're saying, I think we're fine.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
She'll let me know in the private chat. So,
Yeah.
all right, we'll get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Make Mine Mayday, the show all about the MC2 universe and Spider Girl. I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster, and executive producer of the Spidey Dude Radio Network. We want to give a shout out to our patrons at patreon.com/Spidey Network. Guys like Vinkman and Scott, thank you for your support of the website. Thank you for support of the podcast. And if you want to have your voice heard, you can always leave an email at makemymayday@gmail.com, or you can leave us an email at SpideyDudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Or if you want to have your voice played on the show, like we did with Vinkman that one time, 818-925-6631 is the voicemail line. You can leave us a voicemail and check us out there. So, and of course, follow us on our social medias. I am going to be updating the events page on spidey-dude.com. So go there and check that out. Of course, all our shows are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, as well as Spotify Podcasts. Leave us a review on your favorite podcatcher if you're listening to the audio version of this show, and let us know how we're doing. Speaking of that, we'll talk about that in a minute. But with that, I turn the show over and formally introduce our host extraordinaire, Kelly McDaniel.
Hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me. But hi.
Y'all got to watch the live stream. For those that are listening to the audio, go watch the live stream. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as eventually all these shows are going to be uploaded to Twitch as well. So we'll have them on across all the platforms. But yeah, another exciting episode. We're covering what are we covering today?
We are covering 33 through 38. So we've got a lot of story to cover. I think this is ultimately around the time that it almost got canceled for the first time to when it got saved for the first time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that this is the one where the message boards saved it the first time, but I think that this was that first little inkling, because we do have we end on a splash page that says it's still a Spider-Girl world, because I did not want to end on that weird cliffhanger in 37, which we will talk about, because it's so obvious, but like you also see what they were trying to do, and it just felt awkward because I didn't want to leave it like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to 38. So we're 6 issues today.
Yeah, 6 issues instead of 5. Ironically enough, we covered 90% of everything that's in the digest, volume 7. Every important issue that is in here, except for there's an extra issue that's in here randomly, 51, but that's not important, so we're not going to cover it.
I mean, okay, we're going to have to cover it when we get to the 50s, but there is no reason. I guess it's supposed to be set in between 37 and 38. However, it doesn't make any sense there. It doesn't make any sense at 51 anyway. You'll see when we get there. This is the one where, like, I've had friends that have started reading Spider-Girl for the first time, and they're like excited to see something that I'm so passionate about, and they get to 51 and go, "What was that?" So it's the only issue in this series. It's the only issue in the series not written by Tom DeFalco.
Yes,
that's what it is.
It's very notable for that reason.
Well, you'll see. You'll see.
Outside of Larry Hama doing Wild Thing, it's the only 2 issue that's not written.
That's true. I mean, in fairness, the way it's written, it makes sense. Like, it's because it's also the only issue in the original run not in May's perspective. Yeah. Although there is a little title card change in one of the issues we talk about today, where that's clearly, like, if that was a movie perspective, it would have switched narrations.
Right.
It's really clear that's the case, and we'll talk about it because I think I deep dive on it.
Yes. I've seen the notes, folks.
So we do have a lot to cover today, but these are a lot of fun, and I get to talk about Normie, which is exciting. Although you took one of the issues I think I would have wanted to talk about if I had time, but I like the way we split it up, so it's okay.
My big question, and the question to the audience, you can answer in the comments if you're watching on the live stream, but have you picked up your 3rd volume yet? Yay! Kelly's got hers.
me and my third volume had coffee, and then we walked a belt line together, and then I had a margarita with it. So it's our.
There you go. Mine is TBA. I'll probably have it next episode, but I don't have it yet, but it's coming. It's being
good. But also, like, everyone, if you haven't gotten it yet, haven't bought it yet, you should go get it. Yeah, Vinkman picked up his yesterday.
Nice.
So
as of this
we have them. Also, too, when you're talking about the digest, speaking of that issue 51, it's not in here. Okay? It's not in this volume because this volume goes to 50. So if they do print it, which I was talking off before we started that I think it'd be really funny if they just didn't. But that should start off volume 4, which is going to be a very strange way to start off volume 4. But yeah, because this goes to 50. So
like I say, outside of 51, we're going to complete volume 7 of the digest. If you're choosing to follow along that way, if you happen to have those, or if you're picking those up or see them at, like, because I got mine secondhand, that's why I still got sticker residue if you're watching the video. Again, also disclaimer for audio listeners, we are going to make references to visual aids and things like that. We apologize in advance. So that's the standard disclaimer I try to give in every episode that we do. So, all right. With that, I suppose we can start with issue number 33. That's right. Ooh. Called Two Mini Spiders. Tom DeFalco and Pat Olive on script, plot, and pencils. Livesay is on the inks this time. John Workman is the letterer for the single issues, and Dave Sharp did it if you're using the digests.
Is Livesay on inks, or is he on inks and colors, or is he actually just on colors?
He's on inks. He's actually on inks.
And Christy Steele's colors?
Yeah, Christy Steele's.
Christy, yeah.
And I think they were starting to use her at a digital studio too, which we'll talk about probably a little bit later. This was released on April 11th, 2001. It's cover dated for June, and this, of course, ends the 6th digest of Too Many Spiders. So we're finishing up the 6th. We're starting with the 7th in this episode. So he's back. A tagline highlights the Daily Bugle as we begin our issue with the resident troublemaker Ralphie getting into Moose's face with it. This will be a common theme as we go along. Courtney calms him down, and we have Davida caring less about this and wanting to know how cute New Coke Spidey's butt is. Yes, I'm calling him New Coke Spidey because reasons. Nancy tries.
You can call him. He's Coke Zero Spidey.
Okay, that's more of an apt one. New Coke is a very dated reference. So,
Coke Coffee, the new one.
Yeah, Coke Coffee or New Spidey in you Spidey. That's definitely a reference to New.
I'm almost to the point of just like completely tearing off the mystique and just saying who he is. Because it makes it a little bit funnier now, especially in the 616 comics, on who it actually is.
Right.
Because I think the last time we saw this character in the 616, he was blowing up chickens. I mean, it makes more sense. He is a baby in the 616, but he was blowing up chickens. Just throwing that out there.
All right. So back at the hideout, Normie rightfully points out that she always makes friends to Mayday, that she always makes friends with her enemies. So Mayday decides to go out and patrol, but Normie decides to remind her that he's meeting with Brenda's new attorney. I wonder who that is. Mayday sees a mugging when we get Spidey saving the day and being an arrogant prick about it. He's literally stealing his material. This, of course, confuses May. And meanwhile, at the station, Peter is not happy about this. He's venting to Phil, who can relate to someone stealing thunder, but merely listens because he knows that this is, in fact, not about him. May is trying to figure out why she's still in the hero biz while her life is moving on. Brad sees May, and we have Heather pulling her best Kane impression and sitting in the shadows. We then cut to a brief scene with Normie talking to his attorney, and we're introduced to Riley Tyne and the Spider-Girl title for the first time. Yay! May is deciding to shoot hoops when Nancy joins her. She's still not liking her, of course, but Moose is training like a madman and wants to ensure that no one replaces him. This kind of inspires May, and so she decides to head to the Bugle, thinking that new Spidey is going to play Peter's greatest Spidey hits. When she sneaks up on him? Question mark. The two fight on as Mayday takes him for a ride goblin style. Spidey then sticks to a building, throwing May off her glider. She responds with pumpkin bombs. He tells May that he is the total package, the man, the Spider-Man. Insert eye roll emoji here. He leaps on her back and throws the balance off. May then collides with some generators, zapping her. Spidey seems concerned at first, telling her he was just playing around. May then backhands him. She then takes the fight to him, telling him about what responsibility means, revealing that she does indeed have a connection to Peter. This causes Spidey to want to just geek out and meet him. May then repels away a metal pipe, much to her surprise, and manages to duck and dodge like she used to. Her powers are back! She accidentally clings to another pipe and attached Spidey to it. He webs her up, mad at the situation. And of course, Dark Devil shows up right in the nick of time as new Spidey scurries off. He offers a hand, but Mayday jumps on her glider, decides to head home, and then we end the issue with new Spidey showing up and talking to his mother. Wonder who that is. Next issue box says Fantastic Five. Kelly, what do you think of this?
So, in our comments, Vinkman has brought it up, which of course it was my main talking point for this issue. I'm trying my best to be civil about it, but we're getting into it. So this is amongst a lot of newer fans, especially the ones that started reading Spider-Girl during quarantine, which, yay, thank you. I'm excited to have you here, and I hope you're listening and enjoying this fandom because, yay. But a lot of them, because they weren't around during the time, and maybe they're even newer into comics. I don't know their whole spiel, and I'm not going to say that I do, but this is kind of called the 2017 issue because people think that this is set in 2017 because someone wrote 2017 on one of the Daily Bugles in the first page of this issue, and then in the second time we see it, it almost looks like someone tried to say it was 2117 and then someone went in and edited another zero into it. It's very strange. But I don't want to get on my rant about sliding timescale and stuff. And I really don't know if it was if it was Pat, if it was a letterer, if it was Livesay. Like, I have no clue what was going on. The only thing I could think of is that for the sliding timescale of the time, 2017 would have been 16 issues from 2001. So that would make sense. But the thing is the world is not officially set in 2017. I think we're good to let that go. May's always going to be in the future. Like, this is always going to be set in the future, even though, to quote, it's now sometimes as outdated as the Jetsons. So...
Well, and the thing is I know that in the past this got brought up on the message boards, and I remember this being a debate. And DeFalco always said, "Look, you can look at it two ways. That either it's an alternate present, so it kind of is happening in our timeline, or you can look at it that's set approximately 15 years after the fact from the original Marvel universe, where it delineates." Which, again, we talked about that too on the show. If this is your first time listening. Yeah. So it's always roughly 15 years in a alternate future. It's kind of also a present at the same time. So it can
and it's also in Lizzie McGuire era because it is.
Oh my God, yes. I mean the reference. I mean there was a reference last episode to The Rock. I mean, this is the year 2000.
Oh, I had. There's a wonderful reference in here. Should I just go through my rant from my notes? Because I realized after I write it. So a lot of times when I write my notes when we're rereading it, I get very hot and Zach can attest. And then once I start reading it, I'm like, you know what? I should not do that because I never know who's going to listen, and I don't want them to ever feel alienated because they shouldn't be even if they thought one way, because that's honestly valid. This is something here that if it doesn't bother you, right on. I think for some reason, and probably it's just because now I'm old and decrepit 30-year-old, and I realize that I'm too old, um, for fun things. I've been told by some teenagers lately, but like I saw some things on Instagram wishing May a 19th birthday using this 2017 thing. But they didn't even have her date right because they didn't even know the 616 issue and how that was set in Halloween.
Yeah.
Because of course, we'll talk about it later. The way the issue is kind of set up, it's almost like it's in spring. When we do go to her little birthday issue, so it's and that's one of the bigger things here is that it's comics because that was kind of my thing. Let's see. So to start off on this stuff, I was like, we're all going to have our own opinions, but the thing about comics is that they are timeless, and it's kind of this unspoken rule with superheroes like Spider-Man that if you see a newspaper comic from 2002, like our newspaper in a comic from 2002 and it's got the date of 2002, Peter's going to still be in his 20s then like he is now. He didn't age. Like it's time
Yeah.
when it comes to age and years in comics, they're pretty meaningless in that universe. And for this issue, there is an XFL reference in this book. I want to know who was born after this book came out that actually knows what the XFL is. I know that they were trying to bring it back.
They did bring it back for
dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb then. It's dumb now. But
the second iteration.
Again, I think, and so my hot comment here was, unless it's trivia night at some bingo hall, I don't think you're going to hear about the XFL.
This was a football league that started in 2001, only lasted one season. What's the name of it? I mean,
only lasted one season again. 20
it didn't even finish
later.
It didn't finish the season because the pandemic hit and they declared bankruptcy. Now it's going to return because speaking of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he bought the XFL. But yes,
we're in the worst timeline. I just want to throw that out there. But no, like seriously, like the thing is for all these people putting so much time and effort into trying to set this in 2017, they don't really get half these references. And that's kind of where, like, I feel like you're losing the point. And then also, I did write in is we're going to get to the 50s in issue 54. There is literally a Christmas issue. And the thing is, this is set in February. Like, if we're going by that date on that newspaper, it's in February. So how are we going? Because I can tell you right now, Mary Jane's still pregnant during that Christmas issue. During the Christmas issue. Yeah. I don't think she went a whole 10 months like that. Like I know that Benji is got some spider DNA, but no. So, and sort of Vinkman, these are Black Widow wrist cuffs I got last year from Hot Topic. I actually got them before the pandemic because I thought I'd be wearing them for the May premiere originally. But I do wear them a lot because they do remind me of web shooters. They're very cool.
Yeah,
but they're her little spider
stingers.
Stinger things. But I mean, they kind of work. Like if they were silver, I'd probably use them on my suit, honestly, sometimes. But nah, they're just nerd themed jewelry from Hot Topic. But yeah, so that was my long rant about this issue. Was almost entirely about that date on that comic because I knew that was going to be something brought up. Again, as I think I've said, how many times now? Time is meaningless, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It doesn't exist. Math is hard.
Yes.
So That's the way I feel about
It's
the
just like
timeline in these comics. Like,
listen, it's like trying to figure out Franklin Richards' age in the 616 or Billy Connor's age. You're going to get a wide variety of ages for those two kids. Don't ask me why. It's just the way it is.
well, I mean, Normie is the same way in the 616. I mean,
Yeah, Normie too.
I will say this: he's consistently grown,
Mhm.
gotten slightly older, but that doesn't make sense because none of the adults are aging.
Mommy, why am I aging and you're not? Well, I became an adult at a certain point. We just stop aging. That's just terrifying.
Yeah, but
At one point, you become immortal.
all right. So, in other news, on my actual opinions about this, is I like when Normie and May bicker like they do on pages 4 and 5 here. Normie is right; she does make friends easily, but I like the fact, and I'll talk about it more. As he starts getting, I think, a little bit more comfortable with being himself with her, she's very like teenage girl about it because this is the first person she feels is her peer that she can just say everything to. Like there's no filter with him, and so then he starts getting sassy, but like with reason and logic, and she gets more and more fed up with it, and it's really good. But I do like the fact that like for May, she really needed a friend like this that could just handle her going off on them where it wasn't in a mentor capacity. Although I'll bring up a certain thing later too. But May's feeling really left behind in this issue. Because she has thrown herself into being Spider-Girl, and now because she doesn't have the powers until the end, and we will talk about that. She is really starting to realize that she's let her friends go to the wayside a little bit in her social life, and this is kind of just the price you pay to be a superhero. And now that like it's not as easy to be a superhero for her, she's kind of seeing that sacrifice and seeing the consequences. And it's rough, but like May says to he who I will do my best not to name this episode, New Coke Spidey. I want to call him by his name. Like I want to call him by his name, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Because I just want to say something. But responsibility is more than a soundbite. And right. It is. And you kind of have to accept the fallout of your choices, no matter how right those choices might be for you, or, how right they just might be in general. You have to accept that everything has a consequence. And that's kind of what she's learning here. And, all right, I won't go into my.
We'll save it for a little bit.
My person is a jerk, because that's the other part of the rant. New Spidey is a little bit of a jerk, because his mother is coddling him, and he has no business being Spider-Man. And we'll find out later that like eventually, because right now, like in this thing, and it bugged me, and this is that other part of that rant was his mother's like, yeah, you have a right. No, he doesn't have a right. And then she goes back on it later, because then in the next issue, she's like, well, Spider-Girl might have more of a right than I originally thought. I gotta double check it, and then kind of sits on it too, which is very much that character. But I've just his mother coddles him, and that's why he's a jerk. But he has no right being in those webs right now. I mean, he does earn it eventually, but his arrogance, as much as it is a family trait for him, bugs me. Just bugs me.
Yeah, it does. Trust me, I've read the notes.
Not kosher.
Not kosher at all.
Not kosher. That's my entire like notes for him. It's like not kosher. This is not
the
okay.
Not kosher Spider-Man. Just
it's not kosher. No.
Well, I call him like I call him New Coke, but I also call him New Spider-Man, NU, because there was this thing going around on message boards because Bill James couldn't help himself calling Marvel at this point in time New Marvel, that they're moving forward and everything like that. And one of the big clear things about New Marvel was the new trade dress. So for those that are, I'm going to blow myself up so people can see it a little better. So I've got the issue in my hand right here. It's got Marvel Comics across the top with a big circle as opposed to the box that's been around since the 60s with a character in it. This is the first issue that doesn't have the pose from issue 1 and a stylized M with the issue number and the comic code of authority on there. So there's more on that later because that's not staying on the comics throughout these.
It is not. There are a lot of changes to the covers. I think even just in what we're talking about, there's changes to the cover.
Yes. We'll definitely like, for example, for the next issue that we're going to be covering, they started putting the in the the barcode. They started putting the month, the cover date month in there. So that was a change that they started doing in the next issue, because before it just said direct edition because that was the comic shops. I don't know if there was a difference between the newsstand and direct edition. These I got, issues 34, 35, and 36 I got at the comic shop in the back issue bins. So I've had these for a long time. I didn't have 33 and 37 and 38. I ended up having to get that to fill the gaps in my collection. And I also didn't have this digest. So until I got the individual issues, I hadn't read. I think I might have read this one digitally that we're covering, but yeah. So it's a big moment. There's a big moment going on in the Marvel universe as this started the JMS run this month.
Yeah.
And it actually introduced something that we're using today, which is the dual numbering system on books. So it obviously doesn't pertain to Spider-Girl with the dual numbering, but this was the same month.
Yeah.
And in terms of the issue, I love the issue. I'm not a fan of the new Spidey, and I kind of feel like that was intentional.
Again, this is, especially in this first run, this is done through May's eyes completely. I mean, that's why, we are her, the internal, the internal narrativization is always like, we are her. So she's not supposed to like this guy that literally is encroaching on her dad's legacy and acting like a jerk. Mm-hmm. Although, Pete's annoyance with it is a lot of fun.
it does mine some unintentional comedy gold. Like,
it's a slight hypocritical because I will say this: new Spider-Man does sometimes come off a lot like young Pete.
If you read Untold Tales of Spider-Man drawn by Pat Olive, and you read this like side by side, you're going, "Hey, look! It's like a clone of Peter." Oh no! What? No. But
so because there's just that slight bit of arrogance because you've got this power that's it's a confidence booster for sure, especially in a mask where you can be somebody else instead of yourself, which is a large part of this character's story as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, which we will get into, and that is one reason why it's like, I'm trying my best not to just say it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Because I don't hate him. Like once we finish off his little story, you're not gonna hate him. And
right.
But he's a bit of a jerk. Like, and even more a jerk than like Dark Devil jerk. Because Dark Devil is like, that's just his personality. This kid though, is trying to be something he's really not.
Yeah. Dark Devil is definitely. And look,
Dark Devil is just a jerk. That's just who he is. Okay, his personality is grumpy old man, even though he is younger than May. That's what it is. Okay?
He's grumpy old. That's the Murdoch in him. Because let's face it, Murdoch is a
no,
jerk.
it's not. I don't believe that. That is pure Riley.
Okay. All
Pure
right.
Riley.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
realist.
Because Ben Riley could be a jerk. Like, you go back and read some of those Lost Years stories with Ben Riley, not like the Lost Years miniseries, but like the one like Exiled. He's a jackass. Like,
Exactly.
the first time he meets Seward Trainer, like Seward Trainer has no business being friends with this guy, but he just pities him. Of course, you know, Osborne Journal kind of changed the context of that scene, but yeah, the one thing I am going to say, and if you're reading this like in the digest, you're reading this in the trade, the artwork may look a little different, and the reason that I highlighted that Livesay did the inking in this is because I think it's digital, and so it kind of distorts Pat's pencils, particularly with the faces of humans a little. And it's not Pat's fault. It's just they were still, this is very much in the earliest days of digital inking. We've had digital coloring this entire time, but we really hadn't seen them start to, and they're also changing the printing process of comics too. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that, if you're especially reading it in a collection, you might not realize. So the pencils are great. The overall aesthetic is just down just a smidge for me. And I am, for one, kind of glad we're done with the lack of powers. I'd forgotten that it went this many issues.
Yeah,
A couple of,
it goes on a little longer than you expect. And I also want to bring up, because I'm seeing it in the comments, that like Vinkman was hoping that there would be like this big thing about it, like, yeah, I got my powers back, where Vegas just like, cool, goes on to do her stuff, like, whatever.
and he talked about it, you know, from reading it first on the digest. When you get to this one, you tear through it kind of fast because you're dying to see when May got her powers back, and it makes really a lot of sense why they ended the digest on this issue. Because it really to kind of whet your appetite for the next digest. So, Frogoat, our good friend Frogoat, hello Frogoat. He says he kind of likes how she gets her powers back. The moment felt worth it. Just when the new Spidey shows up, she gets rejuvenated. English is still my first language, and repowered. Sometimes it's gibberish, ready to challenge him. And so that's good, you know. Yeah, it's just they're almost too sharp.
Yeah,
it's
a noticeable little difference. I mean, and we too, like, there's also, because the Chris Batista issue is going to be next episode, so we see a lot of different stuff going on. And
I don't know who wrote that because I didn't write it.
Oh, okay. Was it Neil?
It may have been Neil. Yeah. one of our. Okay, so for those that are listening to the audio version, we have a comment from SpideyDude.com, home of the Spidey Radio Network, and I'm like, I didn't write that.
Oh wait,
you didn't write that.
Adam.
It could have been Adam. Well, then
it sounds like Adam because there's Neil right there.
It was
Neil.
It was Neil. Digital assets in their infancy are never great, is what he was trying to say. It's a much less accessible time for digital assets, also high. So, all right, you gotta watch the live, folks. If you're listening to the audio version, we love you. We want you to comment and let us know how we're doing. But you gotta watch the live stream.
Come watch us live, because you can throw us off at a moment's notice just by sending us a comment, because both of us are watching it.
Our ADD kicks in. Like, what, squirrel? Our collective ADD. But it's a great cover. Lettering's kind of wonky. Again, we're getting from the transition from digital to traditional, and it's very noticeable in these few issues, because some things look much more digital and some things are made to look classic. This eventually is going to change. That's one of the other things that Jameis eventually it tries to implement is a different lettering system. So it's very kind of jarring, but I'm glad we got this issue. It's a great cover. I'm glad to have the individual issue finally. It's very striking, and so with that, I have nothing else. Kelly, you any final thoughts on this one?
I think I've torn it apart enough. I love this issue. I love her getting her powers. I actually really enjoy the fact that she doesn't make a super big deal out of it. Like, we do get it a little bit more, but it's more she's just like, okay, great, yay, I have them, and now I will get the respect I deserve, and we will learn that that's not always the case, and that's okay. So it's, you know, it's a good little episode. I keep calling them episodes now, but they're issues. We are in an episode.
We are in an episode. Yes, our life's a series of episodes.
Speak English, just saying.
I feel like, yeah. See, both of us were having problems with the English language. All right, so I speak in
Waluigi and Wario.
All right, so going on to issue 34. I'm holding the issue up. It's got Fantastic Five saves the world, and Mayday's taking out a thug. Great cover. Our issue opens with Mayday testing things at the Fantastic Five headquarters. We were promised Fantastic Five on the letters page. We got it. Her clinging power has evolved as shown in last issue, and now she has this thing, the thing, stuck to a pole like it happened to New Coke Spidey. May drops him to comedic effect. Johnny asks Peter what he thinks about the new Spider-Man, which Peter isn't particularly happy about, and then starts to openly contemplate getting himself a new leg that Reed had offered to build him. Big Brain finishes we learn that Peter's idea is not known beyond Johnny and Reed, and I assume Sue and Ben know. Peter thinks that Franklin is flirting and is not happy about it. He was. He's asked.
There was enough. It might not have been 12 Ys, but I'm pretty sure there were the hay was at least 16 letters. It was starting.
Then an end of the world scenario hits. Mayday volunteers to help, but is brushed off via liability insurance. This, of course, was in fact Johnny saving Peter. Let's be real. Mayday is incensed. We cut to the hideout where Normie tries to reason with May about Peter's intentions. He then asks May to come visit later to meet Riley Tyne, saying that he reminds Normie of someone they both know. May leaves in her civvies and is being followed because Mr. Nobody is doing his best Kane impression, hiding in the shadows. We cut to Mr. Nobody getting helped out by Tony, which, yay, Tony's back. He gets an upgrade and can phase objects.
I get my one curse word anytime Tony's around, right? Good. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He gets an upgrade and can phase as well as teleport now. Things can go through him. Ralphie then taunts Moose again. Back-to-back issues about Spider-Girl, much to the chagrin of Mayday. JJ and Richie are arguing over BuzzTech because remember, Stark kind of went in and kind of messed with the Buzz suit. Davida sees Richie for the first time and is like, whoa. Tells May, boys. She's like, hey, new boy. Boy. It's like the mine. That's Davita's brain every time a new boy shows up. Boy. She also tells May about the 50% off sale at Fingerroth's, named, of course, for the former Marvel editor Danny Fingeroth. One of the guys responsible for the Clone Saga. You're welcome. New Coke Spidey is at home talking to his mama, who's going to investigate the right to claim the Spider-Man name. Decides to call and leave voicemail, or doesn't leave a voicemail. May keeps wondering about the Fantastic Five situation, asks Courtney to check the radio, and of course, nothing. Coach Thompson asks again about Nancy. We cut to Tony and Nobody, and he has a target that he has stalked out. Riley Tyne. Da da da. Speaking of May, Speaking of, we have May meeting Brenda, Normie, and Riley, and Normie asks what May thinks of him. She says he's cute, and instantly regret this as Normie says that he thinks he's like Peter.
Can I just say my headcanon is he knew that that's exactly what would happen, and so he did it just to make sure she was grossed out.
Yeah, I agree. I concur. There is a consensus now. They are discussing Brenda's hearing when Mr. Nobody shows up. Normie and Riley take cover. Brenda and Mayday spring into action, missing Nobody because he's got his new tech. Mayday's spider sense goes off. Dark Devil shows up, as does the new Coke. They attempt to attack, but to no avail, despite Mayday's insistence that maybe, just maybe, we should have a plan. Nobody decides to run out of bullets and says, "It's been fun, bye!" Mayday then calls Franklin to check in on the big event from the beginning of the issue and gets told, it was handled like 3 hours ago and they had like another End of the World event. They've saved the world like 4 times today. So she's a little depressed about how things are kind of still the same, even though she's got her powers. And as May decides that she needs to console herself in 50% off shoes. And that's the end of the issue. Not boots. Not just boots.
Not just boots.
Shoe.
There were it was a 50% off clearance sale. Whatever's on clearance is going to be there.
Exactly.
And too, considering this is in February, why would boots be on clearance?
Yeah. So, Kelly, what's your thoughts?
All right, so I really enjoy, this is a good issue for me. It's a lot of fun. Kind of a little bit low cost or low stakes in this issue, but it's just a lot of fun. Johnny and Peter talking about Franklin's obvious crush on May is hilarious. Also, the fact that, again, Franklin, a psychic who, as we know, as far as psychics go in the Marvel Universe, thanks to the X-Men, they just go into your brain without your permission and read everything about you all the time. But Franklin, who is, like this super psychic, does not do that because consent means something. So he's a good bean, and I appreciate him. Also, this just makes it very awkward. It makes things a little awkward later. Because like we said, we've established from the Fantastic Five mini that he basically is just turned 18. I think he's about a little less than a year younger than Normie, if we're using dates and ages like they mean anything. And he thinks Spider-Girl is around his age because they haven't discussed it, and he just assumed. And of course, she has said absolutely nothing because she is a teenager and it's Franklin Richards flirting back with you. Of course, you're going to flirt back, and she's flirting back, and she probably doesn't even think anything's wrong with this because it's innocent and a little naive, and it's just really, really cute because he's just being cute too. There's nothing insidious about any of it, so it's adorable. Again, Normie gets sassy with May with logic and reason because she's just being a teen and opening up, and he's just kind of shooting her down, but it's just really funny and enjoyable. And I'm sitting here, because again, the whole thing is May hasn't had anybody to talk to. When it comes to Franklin or Stinger, they only know her as Spider-Girl, so she can't talk to them about what's going on in her high school. And then at high school, she can't talk to Courtney or Davida about what's going on in Spider-Girl land, but she can tell Normie. And again, Normie is almost more of a peer than a mentor to her. So it's good for her. I just find it funny that it's very clear that Normie is getting slightly annoyed with the drama that comes with being a teenage girl. So it's just funny to me. But May really trusts Normie, and Normie does seem to really care because he is trying to talk her down, reminding her why Peter is acting the way he is. He really does understand where Pete's coming from, which I think is the first time truly we've seen somebody actually sympathize with Pete. Because even to a degree, Phil went behind Pete's back a lot. on things. So this is kind of the first time somebody's like, well, he's actually right, and maybe you should listen. You know, let's not undermine him. So I thought that that was like really sweet, and I think that it speaks a lot about May and Normie's friendship, but I think it also speaks a lot about Normie's respect for Peter, because that's something that like really it's not ever really truly highlighted on, but like it's very clear, like Normie I don't think would ever do anything to actively upset Peter, if that makes sense, at least going forward. So that's my thing. Also, obviously, it's very clear Mr. Nobody's there, but it's done in a way that makes my skin crawl. I think because I know of what Mr. Nobody is going to mean in the next few issues. That the way he hides, in this issue particularly, and like how he gets his upgrades, and again, everything that happens is like why they can't really catch Mr. Nobody has a lot to do with Tony. Somehow. He's a huge, and my one cuss word, an asshat. He is an asshat. I hate him. He's gross. He needs to be in jail way more than Brenda. But he cut a deal and put everything on her, which is something I missed the first couple times. But that's in this issue where that's what happened. And that's why Brenda can't cut a plea deal, because a plea deal was already made to throw her under the bus. Ugh. Ew. He beats her up, forces her to do half of this crap, and then pins it on her and gets away with it. He got away with it. But we never talk about that part. He's literally the worst. Tony is the worst. You're also muted, Zach.
The absolute worst. Yeah, sorry. I've been having issues with coughing, so I'm trying to like not have it. I'll be on the air, so I keep muting myself.
Allergies. Yeah, but yeah, it just in general, and then of course the mother, who in my notes I have given her name, what her name is. I'm just saying, like, because it's like now she's sitting here saying people can question his validity of calling himself Spider-Man. What is it? I just want to say it. I just want to go, what is it? Like, say her name. It needs, like, it's hard. It's hard for me to, like, hold this in. But I know we need it for the next episode. But yeah, and then of course, the whole page with Riley meeting Spider-Girl and Normie immediately, Normie immediately clocks Riley as looking like Peter, i.e. Ben.
Yeah.
If you notice, the only two that ever just immediately clock him, though, is Normie and MJ.
Uh-huh.
Everybody else is like, what are you talking about? You. And, you know, May's freak out is also gold. Poor May. All of the issues that we reread for today, like, is just really her not catching a break. I feel it. Like, it's been my week, so I feel that.
Yeah.
It's been my month.
It's really been, your month has been just rough. So new Spidey's mom is very overwhelmed, right? Frogo loves the
mom. Why put the accent on it? It's just mom.
It's
mom for us.
Okay. Anyway,
that's how they spell it. Like,
I know.
And honestly, it's probably the correct spelling, because us Americans just decided to change everything because America.
Frogo loves the issue. Such a great day in the life type of story. Some days just don't go your way. Perfect balance of action and humor.
Yeah.
And so, yes, for some reason you only get one shoe, according to Neil.
No cares, just one shoe.
Just the one. 50% off. I don't have a lot of notes on this one and the next issue. Franklin's age is the biggest mystery in comics.
But
so
it's not a mystery in this universe. It's pretty defined. I will say that, but yeah, the 616, I'm pretty sure he just changes his, like, because of his powers, he just changes his age as he feels.
Yeah, I want to be 12 today.
Yeah.
I want to be 11.
I feel that, though.
Yeah. Considering the amount of power that he has, I mean, he literally created an alternate universe just to save his family. So, you know. So I enjoy the banter with the Fantastic Five and the Spider characters. It's fun. It really is. Mr. Nobody getting helps from Tony. Don't know why I put helps from Tony.
You also wrote hilarious, and I don't think it's hilarious. I think it's insidious. It's horrible. It's
It's
disgusting.
horrible. It is horrible, but on the surface, like even Mr. Nobody, who is by textbook, he's nuts. He thinks Tony is nuts.
Oh, he's
That's
a
what's
stalker. Too. This whole
Yeah.
thing. Tony's only helping to continue to destroy Brenda, which I mean, it's definitely an abuser line of thinking. Like here's the thing. Even though like it's not really touched on, and we do touch on it a little bit with another set of characters later.
Yeah.
But the thing about abuse and abusers is when somebody gets out and it's not to their plan, they will do anything to ruin that person that they've abused lives. Like they will do everything they can to ruin that victim's life to have them come back because it's a total power situation and they've lost their power. And that's exactly what happened here. Brenda got tired of it, like she reached her breaking point and was able to leave. And now he's doing everything he can, pinning it on her, wanting basically Riley to her attorney to die to prove a lesson. And just everything he can to say, I still have this power over you. I can still control you.
Yeah.
But like it's literally it is. It's psychotic.
Yeah, it really is.
I think like we won't go into depth, but clearly like I have an ex that is very much like that.
He's a Tony. Yeah.
He's not as smart enough to be Tony, but
he's like a Tony in that
yeah.
respect.
So the thing is it's very, to me, it's very on point to a certain extent on that, and that's I hate it. It's just horrible, and the fact that like too, these are things we're picking up on as adults.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was bad news. I knew Tony was bad. But I think as a kid, I glanced over it because I was more focused on Mr. Nobody, who seemed dangerous because he had a gun. But the person making him indestructible is kind of worse.
Yeah, no, it is definitely. I mean, look, I think the whole flirting thing, when you're reading it as a girl dad, like I am now, as opposed to when I was when this came out when I was a kid.
Franklin's cute.
Franklin's a good guy. I'm not saying that, but I relate to Peter somewhat. Like,
no, it's fine. I understand that, but I will say, like, out of everybody May's crushing on, Franklin's not helping her commit truancy.
That's true. That's very true. So, but really, the bit with Normie and Riley killed me. Like, I die laughing every time I read it. It just makes me laugh. Normie's friendship with May in this issue is just the best. He really is kind of like a big bro. Stay tuned.
It gets, the lines get a little confused.
Yes.
We will go into it because I mean I think I've had my rants off. I've had my rants off screen. It is an important thing because I will explain the thought process I had first reading it and what I remember feeling versus rereading it now and going through things and like actually taking English, writing classes and stuff like that. Because to me, it's one of those things that I don't think every writer, and in fact, actually, I could use examples in like Renew Your Vows. Right. Speaking of, it takes a really good writer to not go towards the obvious. Just because it might be fan service, it doesn't always make the most sense or feel right for the story. And so in the long run, and we might even touch base on it here because there's a few moments here with Normie and May. But it what happens in their story in this, to me, has a far bigger impact than if they had just gotten together.
Yeah. I agree with that. 100%. 100%.
So
All right.
that's why
So
that's why I'm almost like to a point obsessed with it, just because I can talk about it all day long.
yeah. So going to Spider-Girl 35, and sorry, I don't know where the breakdown went. I had it written down. I don't know what happened to it.
No.
So I'm gonna have to do this kind of.
Uh-oh.
So I had it written in there. I wrote it today.
Okay. No, I saw it because I think you were literally writing it when I went through and I fixed some of my spelling errors in spell check.
I have no idea where it went. So maybe I. No, I don't know where it went. Oh man. Okay. All right. So, Line of Fire is the name of the issue. Tom DeFalco, Pat Aliff, script, plot pencils. Al Williamson again with the inks. We open with Mayday's spider sense going off. She's kind of.
You forgot. So it was August, cover date, release June 13th, 2001.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. And we open with Mayday spider sense going off, and she just can't figure out why. And then Nancy and Davita show up, and they're complimenting her on her shoes. Moose runs and says, "Did you hear about Spider Girl? Like, Funny Face has escaped from prison." And so we then cut to a bunny rabbit and a man petting a bunny rabbit. So we meet a new character named Canis. He is the one that sprung.
I hate
Funny Face.
Like, I love how I'm doing this. Just I'm trying. If y'all read that issue,
okay. Trigger warning for.
There's animal violence.
There's off-panel implied animal violence.
It's not off-panel. You see it.
Well, you see.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not gory, but it's not hidden.
Yeah. So Canis is a new character. He's trying to be the kingpin of crime, the new kingpin of crime. He wants to overthrow Fisk, and so he's recruited Funny Face, and we see the bunny rabbit meet. Unfortunately, it's untimely end. We then cut to Midtown High School where the girls are sitting there talking. We see a no where Brad is like trolling JJ because he's like, "Your ex is talking to your current squeeze. This is not good." And so they have a little bit of bickering back and forth. And then Heather is just kind of,
JJ got good stuff back, though, okay? Like, JJ...
He did.
Brad still... Okay. In relations to Brad does this to not only JJ, he does it to Moose, he does it to...
Yeah.
Like, this is just his personality where he kind of antagonizes you. But the thing is everything he does to antagonize is weak. It's weak sauce. And everyone can get the better of him because he is a big giant coward.
Yeah. So
don't like Brad, but
yeah, so
we'll get to that at some point on why.
Basically, JJ maintains that Mayday and him are friends. Brad's like, you didn't have the stones to ask her out. All this is being overheard by Heather, who, because like JJ's like, well, you're the one that never you would take Mayday if she was immediately on the market. You dingbat. So we then cut to new Spidey training again. And his mom's trying to figure out what's going on. So she's calling and leaving voicemails. I referenced that from last issue, but that's actually on this issue.
I remember your notes being there because you talk about like you had an entire rant on Heather.
I do. I have a rant on Heather. I don't know where all that went. But anyway, so we then have Canis like, Spider Girl must die. Like, we got to entice Funny Face into our organization. So, you guys go find Spider Girl. Moose is kind of giving Courtney the stink eye because he still thinks that Spider Girl is Courtney.
It's not this. I mean, it's not the stink eye. He's really like this is the scene where he decides he's gonna skip his own class to sit in girls' PE to watch Courtney.
Yeah.
And the high school lets him.
He's an intimidating kid. Like, he's a good kid. Just give him what he wants. Just let him go to class. Let him go to girls' PE. Just let him do it. So you know, Davida and Mayday are kind of whispering back and forth. Mayday spider sense goes off. All of a sudden, bam! They're playing volleyball, and Courtney gets smacked right in the face. Heather's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. The ball got away from me." Heather, it got away from you. So Mayday's like, you know, she's trying to figure out what's going on. Her spider sense continues to go off. She thinks that she feels somebody following her. So she, you know, kind of leaps up to the top of the building. And she's getting paranoid at this point. So she goes to the hideout, talks to Normie about it. And Normie's like, well, maybe you're under a lot of stress. Maybe, you know, it's just, you know, your powers and stuff like that. And Mayday's like, look, if I'm going to get attacked, I'd rather get attacked as Spider-Girl than May Parker. So a gunshot goes off. She avoids it. It goes into an office building. She just freaks out, heads back to the hideout, and she's really shooken up. There's a moment between Mayday and Normie. They kind of just brush it off, and she decides that she's going to be heading home. Decides to do it in walking home. That's when she meets the gang. They were heading to the coffee bar to kind of, you know, give some consoling to Courtney over her injury, you know, and Courtney's talking about how she's fine. So then there's something sounded like gunfire. Everybody starts splitting up. Courtney's trying to figure out why Moose is being so protective. Mayday's able to say, look, we'll split up. I'll go find a public phone.
Well,
She gets
here it's not necessarily protective. As he pushes her. He gives her a good out.
Yeah.
To go
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, and she takes the good out. She decides to split up, and that's when she meets with Jerry. And Jerry's like,
You just named him. Oh my god.
"Oh, sorry, we've avoided it this whole time, and I screwed it up. I'm sorry." So, new Coke Spidey. Damn it. I knew this is why I needed it written out. Tried to do it offhand.
I think it was written out, but yeah. So, spoiler alert. This new Spider-Man is a kid named Jerry. I wonder what his last name could be.
Yeah. So
anyway,
Mayday and him bicker. Suddenly there's gunshots that ring out, and then there's a whole lot of guys showing up. Again, all the guys that Candace had, said go kill Spider-Girl. The two of them start fighting when Funny Face shows up, and they start fighting. We then cut back to the to the school where Jimmy starts sniffing the air for some reason.
Jimmy smelled his prey.
I smelled the perfume from across the room.
Okay, Jimmy is weird.
So Jimmy bumps into Heather, who is kind of like, feeling really, really sad and sorry for herself, because she's like, I'm not sorry for what I did. I just wish I would have hit the right person.
Yeah.
I was aiming for Parker. So,
you know what? You gotta at least appreciate her honesty.
Yeah. She's really upset because she really thought that Brad Miller liked her. But the truth is, Brad still has a crush on Mayday. So Jimmy decides to buy her a soda. So then cut to the fight going on. The gang still sitting there, and JJ is trying really hard to leave, to go, I don't know, change into his costume. But Moose is not letting him. In
fairness, Moose is trying to protect him because he doesn't realize it's the boss.
Exactly. Moose is just trying to be a good guy and protect everybody. So we're kind of intersplicing. We're kind of intersplicing this battle between them and the gang. But so Mayday's like, look, tell us, new Spidey, we need to team up. We needed to actually have a coordinated attack. I go low, you go high. We'll do this and take care of things. So it's starting to get bad for Funny Face. Meanwhile, the gang's like, man, they're having such a good time. Nancy's like, wow, it must be nice to be able to use your powers.
Says the girl who doesn't want to.
Thank you.
So
you and I are on the same wavelength right there.
Well, I mean, we'll even get back to it where eventually she decides to. and
Yeah.
is a lot of fun because I actually think Nancy should, especially because she would be in it for the right reasons.
Right.
Because she doesn't want glory. She just wants to be a doctor and help people.
So Spidey's like, man, teaming up was kind of fun. So, but Mayday's like, look, this town only needs one spider person. The gang's really, kind of enjoying that, and except for JJ, he's like, she lets Funny Face escape. Like, good job being your inner Jameson there, JJ. Funny Face shows back up at Canis Kennels and basically formally accepts the position as his enforcer. Mayday's then checking her bag, and guess what? Her new boots have gotten scuffed, and she's having a very frustrating day. We then cut to Normie, going back to the
sanatorium.
Sanatorium, thank you.
Someone's watching him.
Watching him in the shadows.
But now, here's the thing, though, is we don't necessarily know if
Who
that's
is?
Mr. Nobody.
Yeah.
But it just bugs me because of how many times we do actually wind up seeing it before what happens.
So, one notable thing about the cover of this issue is it is actually what all the other issues use in the little corner box. So what they did in this issue, instead of putting the same image on there twice, they actually do the classic back spider symbol. So that is a notable thing on this particular issue. All right, Kelly, your opinions.
All right. So, generally, I actually forgot that Canis did this. Did what he did in this issue, because normally I actually would prefer him over Kingpin. I like the fact that he's a animal lover, owns a shelter.
Right.
But I get it. They're wolves, aka, as I put in my notes, dangerous puppos.
Dangerous
puppos. But the rabbit thing was cruel. It sickened me. So I'm very upset by that. Also, the panel with May and Normie, I love their friendship, but in this issue there is a very weird stare down, I guess, because something you brushed over
Sorry.
in your rush. No, it's fine. Is May's powers, because they are back, and she is very, I think, too, with the fact that she had the break and kind of missed having that instinct so much, her spider sense is in like overdrive, and that's one of the reasons why Courtney gets hit, because
Right.
it wasn't normally. May had gotten used to letting herself get hit a little bit, like in gym class, and not using it as much, and kind of deducing when she needed to really trust her instincts and not. And that was one of those things that she would have been able to tell, okay, that's a ball, it's going to hit my head and it's going to hurt, but whatever. But just because all she sensed was danger, she ducked, and that hit Courtney. Same thing went with the stalker that we've got, because that's why there is a stalker following Normie at the end. She's feeling somebody follow her. A bullet came out. It is both of those, yes. Everyone does own the same coat too, though. But yeah, but the thing is a bullet went towards her, and she panicked because Spider Sense told her to dodge. She dodged, and it went into a abandoned building, but it could have hurt somebody, and it shakes her up so badly. It really, really upsets her that because she wasn't thinking and just went on instinct alone, that it could have cost somebody their life. And she immediately goes back to the bell tower, whatever event space that we will call the website at some point in this episode, and kind of confides into Normie just how shaken up she was. Like her nerves are shot here. She's very, very upset, and he consoles her, and he does a very sweet, good job about it. And then they stare at each other, and then they realize that there was a moment, and then they freak out and they walk away. And we're gonna get that a lot. And so I wrote the GD panel. So again, I love their friendship and this weird thing that they do about dancing around their feelings, because it's a good story, but you feel the awkwardness come off the page. And so if you're someone that gets secondhand embarrassment really easily, like I do, the older you get, the worse it feels. Like I can remember being a kid, and it wasn't like originally when I read it, maybe like I might have reread it at like 13, 14 or something.
Yeah.
And I can remember that where I was like, yeah, like, look, y'all have feelings. It's great. Like, and kiss. And now it's like, because I know what happens, and because like I've, I accepted it then, I'll accept it now. Like they don't really, spoiler alert on a 21-year-old comic, they don't really get together. But
Yeah.
they have these feelings, and this is kind of where they're starting to work those out, and it makes it feel so awkward because like they literally they like stare at each other while sitting on a bed, sitting on like boxes, realize what happened, and both of them go scrambling to find something else to do.
It's a very classic trope of like movies and stuff like that
Yeah.
too. It's very indicative of like things you would see like on teenage dramas.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So being you said on your notes being a teenager is hard. Trust me. I get it.
Well, yeah. Well, that was about the boots too. But yeah. So again, neither have a clue on what to feel or think about whatever just happened, and so like you see that, and it's a really good, very well drawn panel, very well written part of the story that I think has some nuance that wouldn't be given today. Like I just don't think that it would happen in a comic book now. But it really shows like, they don't know what in the world that was. Neither of them. Like, even though we don't see it from Normie's perspective, we kind of get the feel that they're like, what the heck just happened here? What was that moment? Oh my God. Because May does. And that's what's like, I feel for May, and then of course, especially about her boots being scuffed and everything that happened in this issue is being a teenager is hard. So is being an adult. Why is life so hard? Gah. But I wrote this. Okay, to be fair, I wrote most of my opinions here out of free time I had at work. And we all know what, like, behind the scenes, what's going on with work. It's fine. Work is good, just a lot. So that is, yeah. I was like, being a teenager is hard. So is being an adult. Why is life so hard? I know exactly.
I found my notes for this issue. So I don't know. It got put in the wrong spot. I don't know what. Okay, fine. The boots thing is. I think I did part of this on my tablet and part of this on my computer, and I screwed it up. Just for me, everything else is fine. Your stuff's fine. Just my stuff got screwed up. So the boots thing is real, and it's funny. I remember Doc Martens were the rage in my school at this point in time, noticing how much they scuffed.
These are
know
clearly Steve Madden's. The Madden ones, the ones that have the heels on them.
Oh, the chunky, the super chunky.
Super chunky, yeah.
Well, a couple years later, like 2 or 3 years later in my school, like 03-ish, Doc Martens were like the rage. Everybody wanted Doc Martens.
Or E-tennies.
Yeah. And when we went to England my freshman year, everybody was like trying to figure out how to go to the Doc Marten store in London, because that's where, they're based out of.
Yeah, but they're not cheaper there. They're more expensive there.
And for some reason, we thought they were going to be cheaper. Don't ask me why. Because I have a whole Hard Rock Cafe story I'll have to tell one of these days in England. But I do remember that people they would scuff up after like a month. So I kind of feel Mayday's pain here. The Stalker Story is something that will come up over time here and there. It's an element of the series that starts here.
It leads into the 60s. Like my brain literally just had just blinked on
Marked for Death.
Marked for Death. There we go. I was about to call it it's not Funeral for a Fiend, but because we were talking about Funeral for a Fiend, my brain immediately was like trying to call it Marked of a Fiend, and I was like, no, that's not right. Thanks, brain.
Our brains are so
my brain is broken.
Okay, so I assume the moment with Normie isn't a big deal, but they get the classic will they or won't they thing here, like you explained. Some people might call it cringe if you don't know what happens next, but it's a thing that kind of starts here. You start getting that I mean, they've been kind of dancing around it here, but
Well, it's right now. I'll put it this way: most of May's flirtations thus far are very innocent.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that like in any of these or like nothing inappropriate happens except May does force herself on one person. But it's a kiss. It's completely PG rated. It's fine. But
yeah,
in any case, it's very, for the most part, all of her feelings towards anybody are very very innocent. And here's it. This feeling's a little bit different. Not necessarily saying it's bad or anything. It's just she feels differently about Normie than she does about the rest of her crushes. I'll put it that way. And she doesn't understand why. And she does. And right now, right here, she doesn't even understand at all.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
it's very
that's
clear.
kind of this realization thing. So that's kind of what's going on here. It's a part of being a teenager. It's just in that part, like I said, if you have secondhand like if you get secondhand embarrassment, or you just easily feel things for fictional characters from TV or comics or whatever you're reading, etc. You might feel a lot of cringe. You might feel a lot of like sympathy. It just really depends on that. And that's kind of where I'm like, I understand the different range of feelings people get when they see it.
Mhm.
But that's where that comes from. So, because it's awkward. It's an awkward panel, even though
Yeah.
it is, and that's a testament to how, it is wonderfully drawn. It is brilliantly scripted,
Yes.
and it's just a great scene.
Yeah.
That I think wouldn't happen in a lot of comics now, just because I feel like there's
There's a nuance in this scene.
yeah, it's a nuance that just, it's very much needed, but it's something that I think a lot of people would wind up skipping over now in exchange for more action.
Agreed. I agree with that. May stumbling into the gang war is true Parker luck, and we'll see that more in the next issue too. She's not trying to be involved, but ends up in it because Stalker and the new Coke isn't being a
Well,
hero.
We'll talk about her like going about her not wanting to be involved. I will say this: she doesn't seem to be more like, where she really wanted to be in the middle of the action.
Yeah.
Now she's just like, I'm good with doing my thing, being friendly neighborhood Spider Girl. I'm good. Yay, I got my powers. That's good. But like, why can't I have the best of both sides of my life? Like, that's really her main focus here. So like, because we'll even talk about it later when she puts herself in the middle of some serious trouble, and it doesn't even faze her.
Exactly.
She's focused on other things.
Right. So we'll definitely talk about that, especially I think in the next issue too.
Yeah.
Heather is unlikable here. All caps unlikable. Why you gotta hit Court? She was angry. But Courtney is such a sweet girl, and I am just not about it. I am upset. It makes me hurt. Courtney's nice. Why you gotta be like that? We've explained why.
She didn't mean to. She was trying to hit May because she's jealous. And see, even then, she still has no right, because May, even though May dislikes Heather and has said some uncalled for things in the past about Heather, it's just been words.
Yes.
Versus Heather has thrown her food all over May, which is disgusting, and it's a personal thing because I actually saw somebody do this in high school. It was my senior year. Someone threw their tray on their friend, because their friend told them that they weren't going to take their tray to the trash, and I had some words, because it's a very disrespectful thing, and then you're also wasting food that somebody could have eaten, even if it is lunch food. I get it. Like, I mean, my chicken nuggets bounced in high school like rubber balls. Would not suggest eating those. I'm pretty sure they weren't really edible. But in general, like, sometimes those are the only meals some kids get. So I have a problem with wasting it for your own petty crap. So Heather is not a great person. I'm not saying that I like her at all. It's just I also remember being a teenager and feeling that petty and that jealousy and that anger, because I'll put it this way, like while May is kind of dealing with this situation where she feels she's being left out and left behind and doesn't really, she wants to keep her social life and her May life but still also be Spider-Girl, and she's trying to figure out that balance there. Heather literally just is constantly overhearing, and she kind of knows Brad only chose her because May didn't choose Brad. And she is overhearing it and feels like everyone knows it, that she's not someone's first choice. And I think we all know that how much that hurts. I think that that hurts regardless of your age and maturity level. But being a teenager and feeling that is not great. And so her acting out is understandable. I think that like that's probably one of the most human interactions that we see out of a lot of the high school kids at times, because that would have totally happened in real life.
Right. No,
And-
that is very, very true.
And
I
so
agree with that.
and that's why I was like, it's like, well, you have to appreciate Heather's honesty, because she straight up says, I don't regret doing what I did. I just didn't want to hit Courtney.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like she's more upset at the fact that she knew she had the right aim on May, but couldn't figure out why she missed. Which, of course, we know why she missed, but
Yeah, exactly.
you know, so because she's only upset because now she realizes she's the villain. Like, to add insult to injury, she hit the nicest girl in school, so now she knows she's the villain, and she's already been feeling like the villain and like the second-rate person already.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very good point. It's a very good point. One we mentioned we also mentioned, for those reading the digest, 51 starts here. But if you're not reading the digest,
We will get to 51 when we get to 51. It doesn't really make sense in the digest, and it doesn't make sense at 51 either. It's just a random issue.
It is by definition what they used to call in the 80s the inventory issue. And it makes me think they had it sitting in the drawer, Spider-Girl gets saved, and it was so last minute that they threw this at the press.
It's possible. But I honestly, like, oh god. Like, it's a letter. So the thing is it's not a super spoiler. And of course, like, I love how we're like, spoiler, but it's, you know, a 23-year-old, almost 24-year-old series.
Brinkman says spoilers are for the week, so it's fine.
Okay. We're trying our best to do it for newer fans that are following along and reading with us, because I don't want to ruin something for them. But issue 51 is an issue that was not written by Tom DeFalco, and it was a letter from another student to May as he is moving and expressing his feelings for her because he has a crush. And the spoiler alert is May doesn't know who he is. So it really doesn't matter if it's supposed to be set in between these two issues or at 51, because it doesn't really matter at its place in the story, really. Right. And honestly, it's kind like the story itself is forgettable. The only reason I think we all remember it is because of a certain scene the artist for that issue draws, which I like to at least state that I'm pretty sure that that's just the teenage kid's brain. Don't know if that makes that better or worse in that situation. All I'm saying is that that's always been my like unofficial headcanon for it, is that's why that was drawn, is because we're seeing it in teenage boy's brain.
Yeah. That makes sense. So
it's I don't want to get to it today. We'll get to it when we get to 51.
We'll talk about definitely there. I do want to mention one other. I do want to mention one other comment that Venkman made about the cover of this issue. Cover 35 was also used for the first proper Spider-Girl trade back in 2001, because again, this is also the start not only of the JMS era. The Scholastic Book Fair doesn't start until later.
I know, but
this is the first of the overall Marvel pushing the trade paperback style. is definitely around this period of time. So I'll look that up.
I mean, it was also the height of, I will say this too, suspiciously, also the height of Tokyo Pop and mangas, which were similar size.
Yes, that's very true. While Kelly, because so I did the first recaps for the first three. Kelly's going to do the recaps for the last three. While she's doing that, I'm going to look up the release date of that trade just so that everybody knows.
Okay, yeah. All right, so while he's doing that, let's get on to Spider-Girl 36. So it has the cover date of September 2001, and its release date was July 11th, 2001. Tom and Pat on script, plot, pencils. Al is inking. Christy and Heroic Age on color. And we have Frank. I messed up his name, so but Dunkerley. I misspelled his name, so that's on my bad. Dunkerley and Matt Hicks are editing.
Yeah.
Joey Q is EIC, and Bill Jemas is president. So May sadly can't get in. She can't get to any kind of good dreams that she wants, particularly a romantic rendezvous with Franklin Richards in her dreams. As just with this Spider-Man situation and the baddies and the upcoming like hints of this gang war, and they're trying to kill her or filling her head, she can't get to sleep. So the moment that she does finally pass out, her mom's telling her to get up. May has trouble, of course, getting up because she hasn't gotten any sleep when her mother almost falls over from being dizzy. Oh no, that's it's worrisome. What's wrong with Mary Jane? So May is concerned, but MJ brushes it off, tells her it's nothing to be concerned about, and to not mention it to her father. The situation haunts May as she stumbles to quickly get ready for school. As she heads to the kitchen, her dad is going off about J. Jonah Jameson's unfounded hatred of the Buzz. How dare he hate the Buzz? And here I thought Peter didn't like JJ, but here he is defending him. But he leaves out his defense for the new Spider-Man reasonably, stating that he can't really trust anybody who stole his identity, which is very accurate. I feel this as someone who has had her identity stolen. There.
My parents have had that happen too. It's not fun.
It's not fun. So it's fine. I get it. So meanwhile, Funny Face and the true mastermind of it all, Bunky, tears up a betting parlor in the name of Canis. Is it Canis or Canis? Canis. It's got to be Canis.
Yeah, because I was thinking Canis.
Cain would be like CAIN, but I like K9 is how my brain keeps doing it.
That's where I'm at too. Yeah.
Canis. So Canis. And so May walks to school, still really concerned about her mom, when she feels she's being followed. She goes to investigate and finds Jimmy. She lightly questions him because Jimmy says he's running errands for his mom, but is very clearly lying, and May doesn't understand why. Like, it's very confusing. It's very suspicious. So Funny Face and Canis talk about recruiting the betting parlor for the gang war and discuss how the Kingpin loves to send Mr. Nobody when he needs a message sent. Mr. Nobody. Again. So meanwhile at school, May is basically staring Jimmy down because she notices that he's clearly waiting for somebody by the school bulletin boards, but May can't figure out who or why or what in the world's going on. It's just weird. Very weird for Jimmy, which says something because Jimmy's weird anyway. So lost in thought, JJ startles May and tries to be friendly, but May is still pretty peeved about the Nancy situation. So before they can start arguing, Moose shows up with a crutch because his leg is acting up again. Some problems just won't go away. At the police lab, Peter and Phil are going over the Daily Bugle because Peter is mad about this fake Spider-Man getting all the attention, and how is no one taking his annoyance seriously? Like, I mean, he's very upset, even though there's a gang war going on. Like, Peter, like, calm down. Unfortunately, there are more serious things than a teenager running around in your costume. Sorry. I'm sorry that some kid is cosplaying you, but there's a gang war.
There's a gang war going on. Come on, do your job, Peter. You're gonna be really busy here pretty soon. Come on, you're an
He
investigator.
doesn't know that. He doesn't know that. Okay, like I understand his pain, but also, Peter, come on, dude, act your age.
Act your age.
Come on. So anyway, Phil brings it up, brings the gang war up, and both are concerned that May is going to get involved in the gang war somehow. I guess it's obvious how inevitable that is, but inevitable. Wow. And Phil brings up the fact that May is hanging out with Normie, because Phil is really concerned with this, and suddenly this new Spider-Man shows up. Could it be likely that Normie is the new Spider-Man? I mean, why else would Normie be hanging out with May or trying to help May? And I have to side note here because that is honestly more hilarious than Peter feeling threatened by Jerry. It really is. It's so absurd. So I think I wrote, I was like, this is dumb, Phil. And also, how could Normie get spider powers? Like, think this through. These guys work in a science lab.
Science.
Just saying. Anyway.
Sorry.
Anyway, speaking of Normie and May, while at the website, because I just keep calling it that because that's what it is now, and we'll find out how it gets its name later. Normie and May are going over the whole "what is Jimmy hiding" situation, and Normie brings up he probably just has a crush on. Well, it just says a crush, so I assume he thinks he has a crush on May, but could be somebody else. Who knows? Yeah. And then very awkwardly and abruptly tells May that Raptor asked him out on a date. The panel with his eyes closed, again, always makes me feel like he's had a slightly hard time telling May, which is a little awkward considering all that they've ever done so far has been awkwardly stare at each other.
I have an explanation for why his eyes are like this. So I'll but I'll let you finish.
Can't spoil another issue.
No, it's not spoil. It's something in the issue that I don't think you picked up on, but we'll talk about it at the
or I'm intentionally omitting it because what happens in another issue.
Oh, okay.
But you can bring it up. You can bring it up since it is there.
There is something he's working on at the time of this.
There is something he is working on at that time, but his eyes are closed as he's telling her, which to me makes it feel like it almost makes it feel like he doesn't quite want to tell her.
Yeah.
But then he feels like he has to. So anyway, so he does it, and all they've done so far has been awkwardly stare at each other and not understood why. And May is shocked, and instead of going over, why this innocent act has brought up awkward reactions in both of them, Normie quickly changes the subject and very sternly tells May not to risk her life by going anywhere near the gang war. It's once again a very awkward conversation because they go from like light teasing to awkwardly serious moment on something that's not that serious to then don't die.
Don't go out and die.
Don't die. Like it's so weird. But anyway, so at Rikers, Fisk and Mr. Nobody talk about Canis, and instead of a message to Canis at all, Fisk asks Nobody to protect someone special to him. I wonder who. May is jealous of May is kind of going over like why she feels jealous of Raptor because she doesn't really understand why. Beyond Brenda's amazing hair and killer figure. These are May's words. And May went out to clear her head, but it's not helping, and she's just exhausted. So she decides to head home when she sees the new Spider-Man. Hey, she could follow him and see where he's going since he seems to be in a hurry and maybe figure more out about him. But he might have a spider sense and might realize she's tailing him. But hey, it could be fun. This seems like just a good outlet to help clear her head. So he obviously leads her right into the riverfront area, and she knows she promised her dad and Normie she'd stay out of the gang war, but she does kind of have to figure out where this new Spider-Man fits in. She doesn't want him, putting a bad name on her, like giving her dad
a bad name here. So this is for her dad's sake, okay? She finds Spider-Man watching in on Funny Face's current shakedown stand with Canis' spiel going on, and May taps Spider-Man on the shoulder to get his attention. So clearly he doesn't have spider sense because she really spooks him, like really bad, for him sneaking up on him. He tells Spider-Girl to... Why did I put scream? He told to scram, not scream. To scram as he runs across an old beam to jump in on Funny Face, but May tries to warn him that those beams are old and fragile when Spider-Man falls flat on his face in front of a bunch of gangsters. Real smooth. May knows she's not in any condition to fight with how exhausted she is, and it's not really her responsibility to take care of Mr. Ego here, but someone has to save him. So she's just not that kind of girl to leave someone like that so defenseless. So May swings in, much to the annoyance of Spider-Man, who feels he could totally take on these guys himself, says the boy who fell flat, like face first, on the ground minutes before. He could totally take him.
Yeah.
Piece of cake, yeah, totally. So Funny Face and, of course, like I said, the mastermind of it all, the most evil of evils, Bunky, gets the best. Also, sorry, there's like a moth that is like in my face, but anyway, so Funny Face and Bunky get the best of Spider-Man, while May realizes just how exhausted she is and why this fight was really not the best to jump into. Good on her for at least recognizing this instead of fighting till she's completely exhausted. But she does realize this is pretty bad. So meanwhile, Mary Jane is in her office at work, unsure of her ability to keep her salad down from lunch, when Felicia Hardy comes in to visit. Felicia! We learn she just got back in town with her kids, notice plural. And, her kids aren't doing as well as she is. Wonder why. So May and Spider-Man continue to fight like 100 goons. And the word was in there. Like, apparently it's 100 goons, according to May. And Funny Face, and it's getting increasingly hard to keep things on their side when something that's causing her spider sense to go absolutely crazy is warning May of immediate danger. Starts throwing smoke bombs at everyone but them. And now Captain Ruaz and company are there to break up the fight. So the kids kind of fight and bicker as they go off chasing Funny Face, and thanks to that, Funny Face does get away, and they admit that they never saw their smoke bomb friend. Turns out it was Mr. Nobody and Crazy 8, Funny Face's brother. Crazy is working against his brother with Kingpin, and Canis, wow, I don't know what I was writing here. But anyway, so Crazy is working with Fisk and Mr. Nobody against his brother, and this was a part of that. Turns out it was Fisk's plan all along to recruit Crazy 8 and help aid the Spider Twins against Canis. Because someone is playing a long game here, and no one does it better than Wilson Fisk.
Nope.
So May swings home, knowing Normie is going to freak when she tells him, and has to figure out a way to keep this from her dad. She's now involved in the gang war, whether anyone likes it or not, including her. But also she's still concerned about Jimmy and her mom and the Stalker situation. Those seem to have way more precedence than the fact that she just got herself involved in the gang war. Great. So meanwhile, Normie gets a sense he's being followed and manages to get a slip on his stalker to confront him. And it's Phil? Phil's been following Normie and May for the last 2 weeks, trying to figure out what Normie was up to and demands that he drop his innocent act. Normie may have conned May into thinking he's reformed, but Phil knows better. Normie plays into it and announces to Phil it is time for the Green Goblin. Oh no.
To return.
And that's also the part where when I was talking about how it actually switches narratives, it's very clear that it goes from May's narrative to Normie's on the stalking. And Normie, I have my opinions, but we will talk
to Zach first on his, and then I will go into mine, because I really enjoyed that part of it, just because you learn how Normie really does listen to May and respect her. Like he trusts her spider sense, I think, more than anybody else around May does. Even May, I don't think trusts her spider sense as much as Normie does.
Right.
So it's a show off that. I enjoyed that. Anyway, I will let you speak first.
All right. So for me, this is a great issue. The last panel made me do this. All right. So that's what I like. I'm reading it and I'm like, in my head, it literally like went off. This is notable. This is an issue that's notable not only for the fact that it's the cover of the digest that we're talking about tonight, it's the cover for volume 3, but it's also the first cover that does not have the comic code of authority on it. So it is.
We can talk about drugs now, kids, but also not. We're not doing that in a Spider-Girl comic.
No. It's a long story, but condensed version. Basically, Marvel wanted to write some more mature books, and Jameis kept getting told it's not going to pass the code, and Jameis asked the $64,000 question that nobody could adequately answer, which was, why do we even care about the code? If you don't know what the code is, it was a self-regulatory system. It was implemented in the 50s. Really
it's a McCarthy era abomination.
Yes, it really is. It was amended in the 70s, and really hadn't had much in terms of amendments since. When Marvel dropped it, it literally started to collapse, because then DC was like, well, if Marvel's not going to use it, we're not going to use it. Image was the same way. And so it started, this is the actual literal decline of the comics code, was in this month, cover date September 2001, in July of 2001. That's when the comic code basically died. Great issue. I really like the cover. I know I keep saying that for all these, but it's a very visually striking cover.
Well, I mean, it's the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good cover. One of
now,
the, again.
Can you hold up the original? Because I just want to see something, because I didn't pull the original. What color? Okay, all 3 of them, if you notice, have a different color for the title.
Yeah, because it's the so the
That's
title.
That's what I thought, but like I didn't pull the original.
Yeah, so the title of on the trade dresses
now I
for
see
the
your notes. Why did you put them down here?
I have no idea.
Now I've got to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, you're. Oh yeah. Haha. Okay.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. Okay. So let me fix that.
No, I'm fixing my notes. We're fine. You talk while I fix.
So like I say, while she's doing that, because I messed up the document, but I really like the issue. I like the fact that this gang war is a slow burn. This really reminds me of the 80s with the gang wars of the 80s and stuff like that with Spider-Man. Great thing. I'm glad that we're getting some resolution to the Stalker thing with Normie. Normie is a little diabolical in this issue.
Okay, I think he realized Phil didn't trust him, and he was like, okay, but this would be really enjoyable if I just like mess with him for a bit.
And considering what happens next issue, it's really funny.
Normie was messing with him, but the thing is also played to mess with the audience.
Yeah.
Spoiler. I guess spoiler alert. Like you can still trust Normie, guys. He's good. I promise.
He's not a bad guy. You'll uncover that in the next recap. But like I say, it's a good issue. It's a great kind of setup for the next issue. But it's a really good. It's still a good one and done, but it still builds towards the next issue. It does a really good job of that, and it continues to advance the plot of the story. And this has been something that's kind of if you're not paying attention of what's going on in the background, clearly Normie's been working on this in the background, and it's literally on the panel. So I didn't really notice that until I'm sitting there. Whenever Kelly does her recaps, for those that are listening to the audio version, I tend to have the individual issue open, and I follow along with her recap, just in case I miss something, or or I can add something in my notes that I missed earlier. And so there's a little bit in that scene that we were talking about earlier that he's working on a pumpkin bomb. So
Yeah.
That's
why his eyes are closed. But again, I still feel like just because of the way the panel is structured, it makes it seem like it's something he doesn't really want to tell her, but he feels like he has to.
Yeah, the way the script and the art kind of jive in this moment, it's a very layered thing that when you go back and read it after the fact, after you've read the issue, you're going, oh, he's working on a pumpkin bomb. So that's a really, I love when artists do these visual touch things. And Pat's been doing this on and off throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is in the annual where there was like different miseries in the background.
Yep.
And if you weren't paying attention, you didn't notice it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. One of my other favorite gags is like in Revelations with Ben Reilly. Him and Peter are up in the attic of Aunt May's house, and there's a upside down horseshoe sitting above Ben's head. And you don't like that signifies bad luck. Bad luck's about to befall these two, but you don't know that until you read the rest of the arc. And so I just love visual aids and visual gags. So that again, great issue. I don't have a ton here, but Kelly, your thoughts.
Well, again, I think the biggest thing I picked up on rereading this is just how much Normie really does take May's spider sense and like what she's saying to him, even though like, we've been making these things because like it does sound like he's kind of brushing her off and he's talking her down and being very reasonable and kind of, she might be super dramatic and over analyze certain things, and he'll go, are you sure? Like, hit her back with like some good logic to talk her down. But he takes her seriously and takes her powers seriously. And so him taking her spider sense seriously is one of my favorite things from this, because he realized, okay, people are following, and he started realizing, okay, someone's following me. And he trusted it. Like he knew it was happening. Even though he kind of downplayed it with her. And sometimes he really is the only one that like listens to her. Again, like even though he can sound dismissive. But like I wrote in the notes, it's like I hate right now that it seems like his intentions aren't great, because that's not true. Also, May's little speech about like, I was just trying to help and now I'm in a gang war, almost came off, because like any other time before she lost her powers, that would almost be like a really, really big deal. Whereas here, because she's got everything else going on, it almost is like she found a sale at Fingeroth's. Like, it's just kind of like, well, this happened. Oh well.
Yeah.
I'm in this now. How do I explain this to Normie? Because he's going to be so mad. How do I hide this from my dad? Which is also like, she's not really too concerned about like herself or what could happen to her here. She's just more concerned about telling Normie and keeping it from her dad. Otherwise, it's just a Tuesday. It's just really funny to me. It's also a little weird that she's immediately like, okay, this thing happened. Normie said not to do it, but it happened, so now I gotta go tell him. But also like her dad told her not to go do it. Instead of like, okay, I gotta go tell him, she's like, I gotta hide it. May. Like, this is so bad. But again, it's because we've been throwing out these like, oh man, since hanging out with Normie, she's kind of had some bad, not so great
choices
here, but it's not coming from Normie. This is coming from her. Drink water.
Drink what? Yeah, I don't do it that often. It's not like
not on this show.
Okay, yeah. On Spider Experience, I probably do it more often. I only try to do it once an episode on Make Mine Mayday, but Spider Experience, I sometimes get a little trigger happy with the
Yeah.
button.
But yeah, no, and I appreciate Frogoat's comment here about my head canon of Normie and the canon because literally all the things that ever like my little fan canon ideas of silly things come off of this stuff. The stuff that I notice in actual comic books. He does love the dramatic. It's funny. It's good.
Good job, Vinkman. You got Pepsi.
Yay. All
All
right.
right.
Well, I'm a Coke person. I live in Atlanta. It's Coke.
I think if you didn't drink Coke in Atlanta, you would be ran out of town. Like it's not. There would be riots. People would be angry in that particular place because that's where Coke's based out of. So, yeah, you know. So, issue 37.
Issue 37. So we've got the cover date of October 2001 and the release date of August 8th, 2001. And yes, it does feature the Green Goblin on the cover, looking very menacing. Oh no. So the title is called Betrayed, and it's the same creative team as last issue. So I'm just gonna go on in. We have a page where Normie is half Normie and half Goblin. Not looking good. Very dramatic shading. He's telling Phil how it is time for the return of the Green Goblin. Yep. It's not great. Very scary. Very scary stuff. So Phil and Normie discuss how May has been a little naive as Normie's been upgrading the goblin suit right under her nose, as we saw in last issue. And he doubts she even noticed. And he's planning a comeback. Too bad the city only needs one goblin, huh? Uh-oh.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Speaking of too many heroes in the pot, May compares herself to the new Spider-Man while she's getting ready for school. She hears her mom get sick and is once again very, very concerned. MJ again tells her that she's got a doctor visit later today, so she doesn't need to worry, and again, not to tell her father. He's had a rough night. Peter is pretty rough for wear as he didn't get much sleep. He was at the crime scene all night getting evidence and initial analyzations of the webbing found around the crime scene. Spider-Man is involved in the gang war, as Peter has obviously found out, and this new guy's webbing is organic. Yuck. And Peter quickly changes the subject because he is grossed out by telling May he didn't use her favorite hazelnut cinnamon coffee, and so instead he had to use vanilla cream. I am making a point of this because how many times I get hazelnut and cinnamon syrup in my Starbucks because of this issue. Just saying.
I kind of figured.
Yeah.
Betrayed.
So, May tries to pick the conversation back up about the webbing, but again, Peter clearly doesn't want to discuss organic webbing. Again, yuck. Also, fun foreshadowing for something later.
Well, fun foreshadowing, but also this is around the time where you're dealing with organic web shooters because of
Ultimate, yeah.
No,
right? Not Ultimate.
No, the Raimi films.
Oh no, because this is before the Raimi films. Raimi films came out in 2002.
Yeah, but the word leaked out during this period that there was going to be organic web shooters, and there was a campaign online. There was a website called noorganicwebshooters.com that came out in 2001, and they were like we're hearing rumors of organic web shooters, and this is awful, and blah blah blah. So I'm wondering if that's like a reference to that, because I remember the message boards back in the day, as I'm old.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
I still think it's some unintentional foreshadowing for Amazing.
True.
And so anyway, so again, Peter clearly doesn't want to discuss organic webbing and asks May if she's heard from Phil. He didn't answer his pager last night. I love how I just want to throw this out here. So I did spell check real fast on this because I had written this very fast, And I know for a fact I wrote pager, not Peter. Google's spell check decided I obviously meant Peter because, there's no such thing as pagers anymore. But anyway, May basically gives Phil an excuse saying maybe he forgot to change the batteries out of his pager. And of course, to advise of ancient technology, pagers were before cell phones, and even though this is kind of as cell phones started to become more and more common, people were still using pagers at this time. I'm pretty sure that my mom was still at the pager company at this time because she was a tech
Yeah.
fixing pagers. So that is a thing.
Yeah, this is definitely
Pagers, guys.
in the transitional period between cell phones. Like most people that had cell phones were business people, which will definitely come up when we talk about next month's issue. But yeah.
Yeah. So pagers existed. I know that sounds like crazy talk, and I'm sure it was the bear, like in the Berenstein Bears instead of the current one.
Bernstein Bears.
Timeline, the Berenstein whatever, like Bears, Anyway,
The
the Bears.
Bears.
The Bears. Anyway,
It's NFL draft weekend.
We're so weird. Anyway, meanwhile, Funnyface tries to abuse puppies, and Canis is pretty restrained while telling Funnyface to stop being horrible, considering it is vile to hit dogs with lasers while screaming "die." But a few issues before, Canis did kill rabbits, so even if they are dangerous doggos, I don't feel like they deserved the abuse Funnyface was giving them. So anyway, both of them are just.
I just heard a dog bark too. So
yeah, that was Luna.
Nice.
See, she's very upset. She's very upset. So May is May is racked with guilt from omitting her involvement in last night's gang war scuffle. She sees Jimmy walking the wrong way from his house to school and is very concerned, but also she has no time to think about that because the Green Goblin just flew past. Normie, what's going on, man?
Mm-hmm.
Very crazy. So May is super bummed by seeing the Green Goblin. Normie promised he was done with the Spider Goblin War, and the Spider Goblin War stuff was over. They were friends and starting to get close, but before May could really work on that thought train, Brad breaks it up because May looks like someone died. May says her thoughts are about her math homework, but Brad doesn't buy it, as Heather drags him away. Jimmy continues to act weird, especially around Brad and Heather, as he literally just kind of jumps into his own locker to get away from Brad and Heather. All right. Courtney needs her English notes, so May and Court go back to the basketball gym lockers to get them when they see a blonde girl trying to break into one of them. This is where we meet Coach Thompson's daughter, Felicity. Felicity Hardy.
Da-da-da.
There's one of the kids.
There's one.
One.
One of two.
We don't need to know about the other one.
It's way later.
Speaking of a Hardy, Felicia is with MJ at the doctor's office and catching up while they are waiting. I don't know why Felicia's there, but you know what? That's cool. So I'm mentioning while they're catching up, this is the first mention of Gene, the other Hardy, or Gene Thompson, as he wants to go by, the other kid, and whenever MJ mentions Gene, Felicia goes, "Where do I begin?" And I was like, "Where do I begin?" is right, but that's a story for another time. Anyway,
when we get to Amazing, you'll see a lot more of Gene.
We'll see more of Gene, whether we want to or not. So anyway, May uses her free period to go talk to Normie about the Green Goblin situation when she sees Brenda, who looks amazing, meeting up with Normie to get lunch because it is their date that he, she I think it's been teased since the issue since we started, so 33, I think.
Yeah, so it's been leading up to this lunch date. So not really the best time to stage a goblin intervention, so May backs out and goes back to school. Peter is lost in thought at the lab, upset about MJ and May clearly keeping something from him, but he can't figure out what it is. Phil is MIA, and this webbing is almost repulsive. So as he keeps trying to figure out just what in the world his life has become at this point, someone comes in asking him for help. Wait, Peter knows that voice, but he can't place it. The person who asked for his help is Julia Carpenter, and she needs to talk to Peter about the new Spider-Man.
Dun dun dun.
Dun-dun-dun. So May is at the website, getting into her webs as she thinks about how she maybe should have confronted Brenda and Normie about the situation and just tore the Band-Aid right off. And then, she's even wondering, is like, does Normie even want to help Brenda go straight? Like, what is it about seeing them together that makes her feel like a jagged wire is just being run through her brain? And those are some very choice descriptive words there, May.
Yep.
Very harsh. Like that is some serious pain, seeing some people together like that for someone you haven't figured out your feelings for. So May decides to focus on the new Spider-Man situation. As she goes to find clues from the crime scene from last night's gang war, she finds the Face brothers arguing. Crazy 8 is trying to get Funny to listen about how Canis will throw him to the dogs if he doesn't change sides, when Spider-Girl goes in to remind them that they're brothers. They shouldn't fight. So they agree with her and decide to fight her. Real smart. Very smart. She had good intentions, but just didn't think that through. So, they decide to gang up on her, and she manages to distract them just long enough to leave the fight, but then the Green Goblin shows up. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, MJ got some results back from the doctor, and they don't look good. What's wrong? And that is the end for now. But it's fine, because we are going to go into the next issue, because I wasn't leaving it there. So, Zach, what did you feel? You should probably unmute yourself.
I should probably unmute myself. The only thing I've got to say about this one, there's not a whole lot on this one, because I feel like these two definitely,
they go together. Yeah,
they really go together. These two issues can be seen as continuing the storyline here. I'm glad we didn't end the episode here, like you said, because the implication versus the reality,
it's so awkward.
It is two entirely different things.
Well, like okay, so it's very clear what's going on, especially when I reread it. It's like, no, duh. Like, of course this is what's going on. But as a kid, first time reading it and also not understanding that part of life, I might have thought something was serious, but it's not really drawn in that way either, though.
No, it's not.
Think about it, like, so, but it's just it's very clear. It's very clear meant to be a misdirection, but it's not a misdirection. So yeah, no, I didn't want to leave it at 37. We had to do 6 issues today.
Yeah. So that leads us to issue 38, the last issue we're covering in this particular episode.
Yes.
Kelly, when was this released? What was the date? What was the cover date?
Yeah, so the cover date is November 2001, and its release date was September 12th, 2001. Yes, a day after September 11th. And yes, it did wind up on the shelves. They did not they paused printing.
Yes.
But they did not pause anything that had already come out, because in fairness, as I explained to Zach today, more than likely these were either already at the comic book shop or they were on a truck being delivered during 911 or 9/11, 911. So 9/11. So it's weird to think about. It's also weirder to think about the fact that we are almost at 20 years since since 9/11. But yeah, so this came out
So
literally the day after.
yeah, so Kelly knew this, but I went ahead and actually reached out to guys like Michael Bailey and Jack Matthews because I knew they were really plugged in at the time. This was like I was kind of not as plugged in. I wasn't going to comic shop like a lot, so I went and I was like, let me double check this because I think New Yorkers got this the following week if they didn't already have it the day of, because I know that there were some shops that were opened back up the because mail didn't go out the next day.
I'll put it. Yeah. No, I mean, I'll put it this way. I don't think, depending on where you were,
Yeah.
and then two, just in general of how America felt, I don't think anyone really remembers that it came out the day after. I don't think anyone went to go pick it up the day after.
Probably. Yeah. They were especially in New York and DC. That everybody was so nobody left their house. I mean, talk about cell phone service and pager service. That I mean, one of the in the South Tower, the antenna for that area was knocked out with the attacks, as well as CBS was the only local station that didn't have their antenna attached to the towers, and so they couldn't broadcast. The other I think the ABC and NBC affiliates couldn't broadcast, but they could broadcast the national stuff. So it's a very weird time. It's something that when we look at the next issues for next episode, you'll start seeing the little 9/11 tribute thing. It's a very, but yeah, just kind of a crazy thing to think about that this was released the day after 9/11, and the title is New Lease on Life.
Oh, but okay, that's not even the worst one that came out during that week, though.
No, there was a Superman, Adventures of Superman, the issue that came out that week. Where there was a storyline where part of New York got caught on fire, including the World Trade Center towers, and everybody freaked out.
There was a lot of very just in hindsight, unfortunate, because none of it meant to be that way, including a new lease on life, even though technically that's kind of what happened with the US, because we had to get a new idea, new normal. Kind of like what we're kind of dealing with COVID, because we're now going into another new normal.
Yeah.
Anyway, this issue had a very unfortunate release date, but I don't think anyone meant it to be that way. And luckily, nothing about these issues have anything to really do with 9/11.
Yes.
So thankfully, they are not poorly aged titles, like Neil said.
Yeah, there's a big 9/11 issue that'll come out in a few months, and it's very of its time.
But it's okay.
I read it every year. I do, just to remind myself and take myself back to that time. But anyway, we're getting on a tangent. So
we'll talk more about when those things came out, because those came out, I think, just after the Funeral for a Fiend, to the point that like my brain always thought Funeral for a Fiend was the 9/11 issue for Spider-Girl in a way, because it is all silent, because there are no words to describe even now really what happened and that impact. But in general, we will talk about that at that time. Let's go in and talk about A New Lease on Life.
You can definitely tell we lived through the event, folks.
Gosh, the children born in the late 80s, early 90s have really gone through a lot.
We really have.
Just saying. But anyway, so, and two, we also, after this, we'll talk about the title New Lease on Life, because I think that there's a reason it's called that as well, thanks to the splash page we get. So, May is currently doing a double take. With everything currently going on her plate, she's still not entirely sure what to do, literally. Fighting Crazy 8 and Funny Face, and now the Green Goblin has entered the fight? Oh no. And I believe me, Neil, it took me everything not to write Green Goblin has entered the chat there. So there you go. So lucky for May, the goblin considers her a friend. Hoo-ha! So Normie is still on her side. Crazy 8 startles the goblin, while May reminds him 8 isn't even warmed up yet. She takes on 8 while Normie, and I put that in quotations, takes on Funny Face and isn't doing too hot. He seems a little out of practice. Yikes. May's getting a little concerned, so she makes quick work of 8 and jumps in to talk to Funny about the real evil mastermind, Bunky, and asks Gobby to change dancing partners. May goes for messing with Bunky, a spot that generally makes Funny Face go away. We probably shouldn't suggest that it's okay to destroy someone's obvious manifestation of their fear of abandonment that they've put into this inanimate object, but Funny Face is a villain. But if anyone doesn't realize this by now, Bunky is his manifestation of his fear of abandonment because he was abandoned by his mother, Angel Face.
Spoiler alert.
Anyway, so since May thinks this is Normie, she's really concerned about what her spider sense is warning her about and doesn't really want him flying in the mess because someone is out there watching them and it's dangerous, but she doesn't know where or what's going on. Gobby listens, but is acting far too paranoid, almost like he doesn't trust her judgment. And that doesn't sound like Normie at all, huh? So once the coast is clear, she tells him to kick it and get out of there, and goes right into asking what in the world is going on. Goblin tells her that things aren't entirely how they appear, and he'll explain once they get back to the website. Turns out things really weren't what they appeared because it wasn't Normie in the costume. It's Uncle Phil. Woo. Turns out that while Normie did want to turn the goblin name around in the name of heroism, Phil was the most obvious choice to carry on the mantle. Normie installed a camera in the glider so they could watch Phil's performance and work on things like it's a football game or something. And while they dude bro out, literally, they keep calling each other dude, May starts to feel like the odd girl out. She quietly leaves to go home when she sees Spider-Man playing it up to the crowd and goes back to change when she goes to an alleyway to change when she realizes she left her suit at the website, as it is now officially called Because the Boys Said So.
Finally, we can start using it. We've been trying not to. I've been trying to be like
using it. I gave up.
Yeah, she gave up. I was still trying to maintain kayfabe when it came to the website.
I like the fact that the moment that they decide to get into coots with each other about the Green Goblin, it becomes a total bro fest, and they've named it the website, like Phil had mentioned all those issues before, and it's so silly, but it's so good. So anyway, back to the story because we will definitely talk about it. But oh well, she left her suit there. Doesn't really feel like going back. She'll just let him be Mr. Ego and deal with it later. So she continues to head home thinking about, and this is the thing that's a little weird here, because she thinks that she starts comparing Normie to a mentor. And I will get into that as well on the power dynamic there. But she's like, seeing her mentors act like frat brothers really bothers her. Because it kind of makes her feel like she's might have outgrown them. When she sees her parents are waiting for her in the living room. Oh boy. With all this going on, she totally forgot about her mom. Mary Jane wants to announce what she learned at the doctor's visit, and while May thinks of the worst, it's not what she expected. Mary Jane's pregnant, and May's reaction is that of every 15-year-old's reaction, remembering how you learn how babies are made in the health class. Ew.
Ew.
Ew. These are her parents. Ew. But Peter doesn't seem to be too bothered with May's less than ecstatic reaction. He is overjoyed. Mary Jane and Peter have a moment while May goes back out to gather her thoughts. She's not thrilled with the idea of a baby being in the house because babies are expensive. True. Require a lot of attention. True.
And a very my rant here, very real realization on what a new baby could do to her mother's career, because women, especially then, but even now, do very much get fired for taking maternity leave in the US. It's messed up. Just saying. Anyway, probably wasn't what was meant here, but that's how I've always took it because that's always been discussed to me. So it's a very real realization. Anyway, May sees Jimmy walking around weirdly again, and all of a sudden, Heather Noble shows up. That's also weird. And then she kisses Jimmy. What?
Dun, dun, dun.
So May is freaking out because Heather's dating Brad Miller. Jimmy, Heather, what? No. So, poor May. Like, her friends have just gone all WB on her. And for the kids out there that don't understand WB, it's the CW. But
I was going to say, it's the CW now.
It's the CW, but WB turned into CW in 2008.
Yes.
It's the same horrible teen drama shows, Jumping the Shark, based off comics, though, because when I was writing this out, I thought about it, and I was like, honestly, if you just trade Riverdale for Smallville, you're right there at this time. Like, really, like, just right there.
Yeah.
I think Smallville did start around 2001. Or Birds of Prey, the Birds of Prey show, which I actually enjoy for its camp, but it is really bad. I do not suggest watching it if you're going to get annoyed.
I think the pilot episode actually, I think the first season was starting on Smallville.
Sure the pilot of Smallville started around the same time this came out.
Yes.
So,
They had to delay it because it was supposed to come out the week of, I think, 9/11, and then they delayed it a week because of everything that was going on. So, what a topical reference.
What a topical reference. But yeah. Anyway, some things never change. So Phil and Normie, her closest confidants, are going all frat on her. The Goblin frat of the Goblin is what I wrote. And the Faces want her dead, and her parents, well, oh boy. She's got to find a way to get a grip on herself because life just feels completely out of her control right now. But how? May goes back to get her suit and heads to the Avengers campus, Avengers Tower, to use their printer. She's looking for info on Canis and tells Stinger and Mainframe, I am sorry about Luna, guys, Stinger and Mainframe about the gang war. She's trying to confront Canis. Stinger helps her, I put local, but helps her locate him. The local phone book, no less, is how they used it. So it's like Googling now. Yeah. Although you could kind of Google back then. There was Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. But they still do phone books in rural areas, just so you know. Don't ask me why, but they still do. Some
people like having a phone book. I mean, it's fine. Anyway.
What happens when your internet's down? So, it's nice to have.
You die inside when you're
I know.
Anyway.
Kids these days.
Me these days. I've been on the internet since I was 4.
I know.
Anyway, so they find him and find his animal shelter, which probably sounds a lot like the background right now for me with Luna going crazy. So anyway,
anytime we mention the character, Luna's like, I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm surprised you're not hearing Waylon because he's out barking too. So.
Yeah, but anyway, Stinger, once they locate him and see where he is, May's all ready to go, just busting in, and that's how she's going to end the gang war by just telling him to stop. And Stinger reminds Spider-Girl that she really doesn't have proof right now to confront Canis without getting arrested for trespassing and or assault. And this just frustrates May, which, I mean, I think it would frustrate all of us, but she's just really frustrated. She's like, why am I even wearing the webs? Nothing is going right. This is just not right. But as she swings through the city, she's reminded that this is her city. She isn't too busy
to worry about helping other people with common thugs like the Avengers are or the Fantastic Five are. And life isn't fair for a hero. The good guys don't always have it easy. But she's about to be a big sister, and it's still a Spider-Girl world. And that's where we end.
Splash page.
Splash page that says very clearly it's still a Spider-Girl world. And this issue, I call it the splash page of save.
Yes. It's a very apt description.
Because I think that this issue clearly was basically saying, "Hey, we didn't get canceled." So
yeah. So, for me, this is the best bromance of the MC2 since Juggy and Thunderstrike. Normie and Phil getting to fulfill, the legacy of and reinterpret the legacy of the Green Goblin is an intersection of the two characters that I really, really like. I'm glad we got to this point.
I enjoyed them together.
Yes, they're like I said, the bromance is great, but just from a storytelling standpoint, these two characters have had a similar path that they forged. Normie as the heroic goblin, this is kind of the fulfillment of that, and we start to see, through Normie and Phil not being enemies. They could easily be enemies. In fact, the original plan for Phil in the 616 during the Spider Hunt saga was that Norman was going to be manipulating Phil, and that didn't come to fruition, and it had a really awful ending. Thanks, Howard Mackey. So I think there's some, and I'll leave one of the notes for when you do yours, because it's kind of playing off what you said. So I'm glad we got to the point. Great artwork, great storytelling. Love the cover. Just the shocked May face that we get. This may very well be the last word balloon we get on a cover for a while.
Yeah, I think it is.
So also, instead of putting, they put in the last issue in the box, they put the pricing in the last couple of issues.
Mm-hmm.
This issue, they just leave. They have 38 on here, but it's blank.
Yeah.
So that is something of note. But yeah, Kelly, what do you think?
Again, like I said, the first part of my notes are splash page of save. Yay! I really love that splash page a lot. So, and as I wrote, and as we've kind of made mention of this last month and even today's episode, I've had a really rough month. I mean, it's mostly just adulting, but it is rough. And I needed this issue reread this week a lot, because with everything going crazy, it's nice to be reminded to remember why you do the things you do. May needed that reminder. I needed that reminder. So I enjoy this issue for that reason. I mean, for all the reasons that we love it, but that was very special this week. I really do appreciate that. And then again, I adore this. I call it the stupid broing, because dude, where's my car, dude? Like, that's literally how they sound.
Yeah.
So
they are very much like Kelso and Hyde from that 70s show.
But I adore I adore it, because it's just so funny. And the thing is like, Phil really needed it, because like you could tell he's been getting frustrated, because even at work, even though like Peter and Phil are, Peter considers Phil his best friend, Phil's getting frustrated because Peter is very much kind of going me the whole time, and Normie is just letting Phil be Phil and focus on what Phil wants to focus on. And it really felt like Phil needed that. And, Normie is just really enjoying, I think Normie is just enjoying giving Phil that, because he gives Phil validation that he can be the Green Goblin, which is really good. And I feel like it's probably cathartic for Normie to see someone use the Goblin in a good light, but he knew he wasn't going to be that person. And it's really, like I said, it's really nice. I really enjoyed that part. And this isn't the first time where we see May literally share everything to Normie, but Normie doesn't share everything with May, or anyone for that matter. In fact, there was even a discussion about it in a later issue, because Normie feels like you shouldn't have to share everything with everyone. But see, May's been sharing everything with him. It's not always the greatest, and I don't think he means it in a bad way. It's just you're starting to kind of see that Normie doesn't always show his full hand, like, ever. And that's probably something he probably learned from his grandfather, honestly, but he's still, even with good intentions, this is still what he's doing. And it's a character trait that I feel like needs to be brought up, because I think sometimes we simplify characters too much, and there's a lot of complexity in these characters in comics, and I don't know, like, they're made to feel real when they have these certain character traits and stuff like that, and I like bringing it up. But it's, like I said, it's just a constant pattern in the character I see, and we're gonna keep seeing it. And then, of course, a new baby. There is a baby, as we've already said, it's Benji, but oh boy, baby. So
baby on board.
New baby.
Yes, I remember those days when I had procreated and we made the announcement of having a baby.
Ew.
So I get where Peter and MJ are at this point. I understand. So sorry, I didn't mean to gross you out.
Can I use the word procreate?
Because that's I don't know. The scientific term?
All right. Just, it's
an awkward phrase. I know. It's an awkward phrase. But it's me we're talking about. I mean, when am I not awkward?
I mean, this is like the Twitter. So our good friend Kelly wrote, the other Kelly wrote on her Twitter that over the pandemic she has broken up the Spider-Girl Twitter into 3 categories. the fans who started from the beginning and can't let it go, the ones who found it during quarantine, and dads.
And I cut, and then the fourth part was sometimes these overlap, and I went, "Why you got to hit me like that? Like, that's not cool." I was in the first category, and now I'm in the.
I bought a pink cap that said "Daddy" because I felt offended. I wasn't in 2 different categories, so
that's funny.
That's happening now.
So
anyway.
Somebody okay, so Frogoat asked in the comments about the spider hunt thing. It was I'm about 90% sure it was mentioned in Life of Riley in an offhand comment by Glenn Greenberg. I think it's towards the end, but yeah, that's where that comes from. So
so I really enjoyed it. Vinkman is asking, what did 10/11-year-old. I was still 10 when this came out, but I probably was 11 by the time I picked it up because of 9/11. What did I think about it? I don't remember being I don't really remember feeling any sort of way about it. I think it was more like, wow, they're old to have a baby. And then I think I was like, isn't she 15? Like, that's not, 14, 15. Because see, in the South, with the Bible Belt, teen pregnancy is very common. So I do remember but I think I was a little bit older, after Benji's born. I'm constantly like, so how many times did people ask her if that was her baby? Because so my cousin, I have a cousin who's a good 12 years older than me. So around this time he had his first kid. In fact, actually I had 2 cousins that are
that age, and they had their kids, and I babysat them at like 13, 14.
Mhm.
And I can remember, like, having an aunt, like my aunt, or having my mom drop us off at the movie theater to, like, I think it was like to go see Garfield. And someone asked me if this like 2-year-old was my kid. Yeah. I had my math teacher from 6th grade. So, she taught me the whole year. See me 2 months later with my 4-year-old, like my cousin's 4-year-old, and his new baby, like his new son, who is maybe like 6 months or something, and asked me if it was my kid. That
Nice.
happened. I mean, I went to her face and I was just like, so you didn't even, like, really? Cool. So anyway, that's a thing I think I probably was more focused on, was I was like, ooh, people are going to mistake Benji as Maze, and that's awkward and weird. Ew. And luckily nobody did that, which is nice.
Yeah. So
And also as an adult me, I just want to say Peter and MJ are not that old to have a baby. Like at that point, like that's about maybe
Well,
a little bit older than average now. So
right.
anyway.
I mean, it would definitely be a high risk pregnancy in general. I mean, if they're around,
It wouldn't. Well, I mean, it is, but I don't even think it would be today's terms. Whatever, like it's fine. They're like in their mid-40s, I would say here. It's okay.
yeah.
It's normal.
So, yeah, that's it. That's the episode. Like
That's the episode. I feel like we ended on an awkward spot talking about babies. Maybe I should have like added another issue to this. But yeah, no, I wanted to end today's episode on a better note, and I felt like this was better than if we had just kept our normal 5 issues. We're
Right.
going to start getting into where more things are connected. So it won't always be 5 issues or 6 issues. It might be, I think at one point one might be 7, one might just be 4. Because we're starting to get into where issues are connecting and ending on really like crazy cliffhangers. And I don't want to leave us on anything that is going to be difficult to not want to read the next issue. So
yes. All right. So next episode,
as I try and get down to my stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So next episode is 39 through 43. So I think that's another, how many issues is that?
5. It's
5. Okay, good. It's just 5.
Yeah.
So the issue Chris Batista drew.
This one.
We learn more about Jerry, or Spider-Man.
Yep.
Including his last name, which is not Seinfeld. Frogoat, I'm sorry. The gang war heats up. Someone dies.
Like death without warning, issue 40.
And a group of heroes form to clean up some misjudgments.
And iconic cover homage right there for 42. And then 43. Bunch of people
42.
team up.
Yeah.
So that is.
I wonder what their team is called.
I wonder. Is it Her Amazing Friends?
I mean, it should have been.
It should have been, but that is not the answer. So that is, again, that's the end of the episode here on Make Mine Mayday. Want to give a shout out to our friend Bogey, Neil Brogan Rider Variety Hour normally is on Saturdays, so at 8 p.m.
Why do you call him Bogey?
That's his nickname with somebody else. I don't know why. Anyway, so Bogan Rider Neil has his show, the Bogan Rider Variety Hour. It's usually on Saturday nights. Of course, we'll have a new episode of Make Mine Mayday next week, 7 p.m. Eastern, May 7th. 1 week from today. Next Wednesday, we'll have another episode of Spidey Dude Experience covering the next issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. And Tuesday, I will be on the Dorkening podcast, I'll be covering a Spectacular Spider-Man 149, covering the Carrion story there. And
I was on a few weeks ago
Yeah.
with the Hobgoblin, and so
So-
that was a lot of fun. We also talked about X-Men Inferno. I don't know if you're going to talk about X-Men with them.
no, the Inferno arc's already done. Like, I think it wraps up in 148, and so 149, because I am the clone expert, I have been voluntold to show up. So I was like, all right, I'm good, I'm game. So his Salby Cinema podcast, check that out. YouTube.com/The Dorkening is where all those shows are uploaded as well.
They also had it. Speaking of The Dorkening, I mean they're pretty good. They also had an interview with a acquaintance of mine through the Ghostbusters who makes nerdy T-shirts, and I'm sure that that's fun because they talk about his job.
Nice.
So
That's cool. They got all sorts of things there. Weirdly enough, I think I might have been their 2,000 subscriber for that one.
Good.
So
Good.
nice. But yeah, definitely like and subscribe. Like and subscribe our show on this on YouTube.
Frocoat says I need a pay raise, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So thanks for everybody in the comments. For those again listening to the audio version of this episode, thanks again for listening, and we will see you guys next time here on.
Yep. Next week, hopefully.
Yep. If anything changes, we'll post it on our social media, so be sure to follow those.
Should be next week. We will talk about when we're not on Fridays next week for the month of May.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.